Chin was an orphan, which Mr. Lin took care of from childhood. So even the servant looked at the boy down. Everyone only dreamed that the guy disappeared. But according to some misunderstanding, Mr. Lin decided that he should marry one of his granddaughters. The girl was no exception and also despised Chin. In 3 years of marriage, he did not hear a good word from her. What to say about something more? The sisters decided to help our hero's wife get rid of him and staged a staging, designed to compromise the guy. Everything began with seduction. So, Chin was on the street, he was expelled for allegedly molesting a relative and was a bug. He was forbidden to approach the house. But this is not all. The wife hired bandits in order to beat a loser on whom she spent 3 years of life. Even though the guy did not touch her sister, but also to herself. Everything could end in an absurd death on the sidelines, but it became an impetus for the awakening of the true essence of our hero. The truth that changed everything was revealed to him. The golden shining dragon appeared Chin in order to open his eyes to the very meaning of existence and the true nature of the hero. It was a vision where the sands of the desert and waves of the ocean met to unite the elements and show the guy that any weapon was available to him. The dragon's voice sounded simultaneously from all sides. Chin could not understand who speaks to him and where he was, but his self-awareness changed dramatically. The young man looked around and felt his power filling him. The question that the dragon asked plunged the hero into a state of shock. He asked how his child could live such a worthless life and eke out such a miserable existence. The dragon did not like the reaction of a guy who was confused with surprise, and he added that he was glad that Chen is not the only heir was a more worthy and bloodthirsty candidate. Therefore, the monster reported that the guy would inherit only his blood and nothing more. The hero found out that he was the son of the dragon, but his special abilities have not yet awakened. Then the dragon, in the guise of a long-haired man, extended his hand forward. A bright light burned in it, with the words that he would give not only his blood, but also his strength. He directed the stream to the hero. The radiance was approaching our hero, like the discharge of lightning. His father's face was serious. The only thing that Chin heard from him was a request not to become another disappointment. Despite the fact that he was practically at death, the guy found the strength to rise and extend his hands to get his father's gift and activate his capabilities. His hands eagerly absorbed energy. The radiance began to spread through the body, penetrating into each of his cages and changing it. Finally, there were so many forces that a whole halo of radiance formed around a person. He felt how the muscles grow and pulsate, how ancient knowledge and skills are activated in the brain. Apparently, at some point, Chin could not stand it and turned off when he opened his eyes. He saw the blurry figures of some unfamiliar women leaning over him. He could barely move his lips and asked where he was. The girl asked to be silent and not to waste strength. Serious wounds, but the doctor was already on the way. Our hero sat down and grabbed his head. He learned the secret scriptures of the doctors, the art of nurturing the immortal, the scriptures about this world. It seems that the life of the son of the dragon will now have to live. The maid informed Miss Su that the doctor arrived. The girl was delighted and said that if so, she could go. Chin also let her leave when the doctor finishes. The guy sat down and healed himself. There was not a single scratch left on him, which shocked the girl. He thanked her for his care and promised to repay the debt, asking her name. He called himself, but the savior replied that her name was not necessary at all. She did a good deed for her grandfather. The girl was much more worried about why all the hero's injuries disappeared on his own, and why Chin got into such a situation. The young man did not answer, but asked what happened to his grandfather. In gratitude, he could help solve the problem. Miss Su said that we are talking about an incurable disease and she hopes to exchange her good deeds for a couple of days of his life. Our hero, a little embarrassed, said that he was a little versed in medicine and asked for permission to look at the patient. The beauty looked at him in surprise, but still decided not to miss a single chance to save her grandfather. In the patient's room was a doctor who just said that after the treatment he prescribed, the patient should be better. Hearing this, Chin objected that judging by the appearance of an elderly man, more cardinal measures of treatment were needed. His condition is deplorable. The doctor was indignant that this is nonsense. He is the best doctor of the city. How could he question his work methods? The hero looked at him with a formidable look and asked if the doctor was ready to take responsibility if something goes not according to the plan. And the grandfather and the doctor and the granddaughter looked at him, as at the madman. Some tramp questioned the words of a high-class doctor, the best of the best. With a pathos appearance, the man said that he had many diplomas and extensive practice. An error is excluded. Just at that moment, the old man began to cough. His blood poured out of his mouth, which was very scared by those present. The girl grabbed his hand. The doctor ordered immediately to call an ambulance. He could not understand what caused such a rapid deterioration in the patient's condition and began to make excuses. Chin-Chen replied that the ambulance would not help, already too late, but he could try to save the grandfather of the beauty. He put his hand to the old man's forehead and realized that his energy was running out. There was simply no strength to fight the disease. The girl panicked and asked the hero to do at least something if he saves the old man. The Su family would not remain in debt. Well, the son of the dragon had a chance to put the acquired knowledge and strength in practice. He concentrated and directed the energy to the patient healing. Previously, Chin-Chen did nothing like that, but decided to try, because he felt obligated to pay for kindness. The dragon's power fell into the old man. It was far from so simple. But the young man made all possible efforts. Mr. Su felt completely healthy. He dreamed that he was sitting under a huge flowering tree, full of strength. An elderly man was healed literally before his eyes, and now looked much better. The girl asked how he feels, and the doctor tried to understand how the guy managed to make a miracle. Our hero without strength donkey on the floor. He was completely exhausted, because he spent almost all his energy. Grandfather Miss Su realized that thanks to the hero he survived and promised him a reward, asking what the stranger wants. Chin-Chen replied that he did not need anything. This is gratitude for the fact that a kind girl picked him up from the street, because otherwise he himself would have died. The beauty was embarrassed, blushing a little. She laughed that she had done a good deed, but did not even hope for such a reward. She helped the hero rise and said that in any case they were very grateful to him and would not remain in debt. Su-Van asked for permission to introduce herself and named her name. Besides, she remembered the name of the young man and once again thanked him. The guy was dumbfounded. He just announced his name and did not expect at all that the beauty would remember him. It was very nice and unexpected. Su-Van took him a little to the side and in a whisper asked what the probability that his grandfather would live for at least a few years. The old man heard the question. He had a sharp hearing because he laughed and said that he would live as much as fate. But the young man would like to invite to dinner. The guy was embarrassed and said that he was not taking a shower, so he was not sure. But at that time his phone rang. A message came. It was his wife, who said that she did not expect him to survive, but under the threat of death forbade to return to the house. Chin-Chen thought that now the old man and his granddaughter were to answer. It was necessary to solve the issue with relatives immediately. He said that he had an urgent business. As soon as he dealt with him, he would return and will gladly use the invitation to have dinner. Su-Van replied that in this case she wanted to give him up so as not to delay time. It would be faster and more convenient. Together they left the house and got into a chic red car. It seems that the Su family did not have financial problems. At this time, the head of the clan asked his subordinate to dug information about the stranger who had saved him. Caution would never hurt. Arriving at Su-Van, she got out of the car and remained waiting for our hero to deal with his affairs. Chin-Chen did not know about this yet. He went into the room and saw two men who had a hand in his beating. There were others that they did in his house. It was not clear. Wife? Lin Kin-Chen turned, hearing how the hero came in, and informed him to immediately clean up. The young man was confused and wanted to answer something, but no one was even going to listen to him. The situation looked absurd. The girl said that she had not hoped that they would ever meet, but since he broke here, even if he signed the documents for divorce at the same time, she looked flirtingly back and added a mysterious voice that in order to go quickly, she should imagine someone. A man sitting in an armchair, her future husband, Mr. Yang from Sanshui Group. A woman ardently hugged him and stated that jealousy was inappropriate because he and the hero were not a real husband and wife. The guy replied that this was true. He was more like a slave than a spouse because he would be happy to sign the papers. Lin Chen laughed and ordered to hurry. Chen signed and threw the documents in the face of his ex-wife with the words that nothing connects him with Lin's family. He turned around and left the building, followed by an angry woman with cries that the impudent allows himself too much. Then the hero heard a call and realized that Su-Van had not left, but was still waiting for him near the car. This was a pleasant surprise. The guy went to the car and apologized for making himself to wait long, but he did not ask about it. The beauty smiled and replied that it was not scary. My grandfather just called and said that he had a business to Chin-Chan. We had to meet. Lin Chen and Yang almost spit with poison. They could not understand how the loser managed to pick up such a beauty. And even with such a car, he probably hired the actress to annoy them. The secretary reported to Mr. Su that Chin-Chen Sirot, whom Mr. Lin raised, and then married one of his granddaughters, The old man replied that Lin had never heard of the family. Small bipods, apparently. The idea that the guy is a simpleton serving as a small businessman, besides, has no medical experience. A little alarmed, the old man. He leaned back in his chair and thought that he had overestimated the stranger. Should be invited to reconsult Dr. Sun, therefore he gave the corresponding order. At this time, Chin-chan was offered a room with a shower to put himself in order. He joyfully agreed to this proposal. Su-van smiled and said that there was still time to dinner. Let him come as soon as he was ready. The guy thanked and closed the door behind her. There was no question of the soul. It was necessary to put the head in order. There, the incredible number of information received from the dragon accumulated there. Having assessed the situation, the young man realized that he owns the information of thousands of books on medicine, but his healing skills directly depend on the amount of spiritual power. Then, Chin-chen realized the knowledge of the pill of immortality on the basis of herbs, because he decided to try and ask the maid to bring the ingredients in pots for potions. Dr. Sun told Mr. Su that he did not have many chances. There would be a young man, a transfusion would come up. But now there can be no talk of it. The body simply could not stand it. The granddaughter suggested calling Chan to also express his opinion. In this situation, any opportunity would be good, hope sounded in her voice. Grandfather objected that all the will of God and he did not believe in miracles, but very sorry that he did not find her a good house and husband. Then, in the doorway, the disheveled Chin-chen with a pill in his hands appeared. He apologized for being late and offering his medicine. The doctor stooped his eyes. He, by smell, guessed what kind of pill could be, but did not believe that someone could create it. The smell was really disgusting. All those present clamped his noses. It was not so easy to restrain the vomit. Our hero said a little bewildered that this is a traditional pill of local herbs. Finding their maid was not difficult. He does not guarantee success, but still offers to try. The doctor decided that his guess could not be true, and the tramp simply offers Mr. Su Sing a lump of dirt. Therefore, he was skeptical of his venture. The guy replied that there would definitely not be worse. Besides, if there are no other options, why not risk and try his treatment? Van Su began to persuade his grandfather, but he refused to take a potion that smells so much and unpleasant. Then the doctor intervened, saying that the pill was really not dangerous since it was made of traditional grass. If it cures the patient, he will call Chin-chen a master. The old man cautiously picked up a black ball and said that since the doctor believes that he should take a chance, he would take the medicine. All those present froze. Mr. Su required a considerable force of will to force himself to swallow this stench pill. She almost got stuck in her throat because she caused severe nausea. A considerable effort was worth making the body to take the medicine, but the effect turned out to be amazing. An elderly man felt young and healthy, as if energy began to seal in the body, and it again became young and strong. The granddaughter and the doctor leaned towards him with questions about well-being, but Mr. Su could only repeat that it was simply incredible and impossible. He said that he not only feels great, but apparently was younger. Now his body can withstand the transfusion that the doctor spoke of. Escalapus did not expect anything like it at all, and shouted that he was simply obliged to find out the recipe, but our hero decided to keep it secret. For the first time in many years, Mr. Su rose to his feet on his own. He wanted to shake his hand to the savior and thank him. As a sign of respect, he gave Chin-chin Villa on the mountain. The guy tried to refuse, but the old man assured that his life was much more expensive. Su-van was taking the guy to his new house. The villa was huge and amazed the imagination with her luxury. Our hero looked around the building and thought that his life in one day had changed so much that it was simply impossible to believe in it. As if a dream. Then Chin-chen heard the indignant cries that it was too much to pursue them on vacation. It turned out that his ex-wife was spending time in villa. The young man did not expect such a coincidence at all, and strongly said that now he lives here, let him fail immediately. The woman began to laugh and stated that the beggars had her own quirks. Let Chin-hu immediately deal with this. The muscular blonde began to knead his fists to escort the uninvited guest from the villa. He was not yet aware of what happened to Mr. Su and his gesture of gratitude. But then the man looked at the guy with the girl whom he intended to mark was more closely and realized that in front of him Miss Su. Su-van looked menacingly at Chin-hu and asked how much he was friends with such villains. She said that she never wanted to see them anymore. The man was very scared and promised that their legs would no longer be on the villa. Now he will teach them a lesson in good manner. The hero's ex-wife tried to be outraged, but quickly received a slap in the face in order to know her place and not lean out. Chin-chen and Su-van went inside the building to look around. Ian imperiously asked Chin who that he allows himself and who was generally this girl who scared him so much. The blonde looked at him as an idiot and explained that this was Miss Sue from the same family of Sue, who belongs to the villa, and in general everything that he sees around. Sue Van stood on the terrace and enjoyed the look. Everyone around was enveloped in the delicious smells of dishes, which took the courage to cook Chin Chen for the guest of his new house. Soon, the girl was already sitting at the table and enjoyed treats. The guy made a compliment that he was preparing better than the personal chef of the family. When the hero leaned toward her, giving a dessert, Sue Van grabbed his hand and said that he was also strong. She did not understand why Chin Chen's wife divorced him. The guy was embarrassed and replied that she did not consider him for a man at all. There was no talk of marital duties. Sue Van also blushed and thought that it was all very strange. But the young man liked the girl so much that she decided that this was a chance to make a relationship. There was a somewhat awkward pause. Each of the young people thought about his own, but both were extremely embarrassed. Chin Chan's heart pounded so much that it seemed to jump out of his chest. He also liked Sue Van very much. The girl turned away so as not to show emotions. In order to diffuse the situation, our hero began to treat his friend with another dish. She praised and offered him to join the meal. Looking at what was happening, the beauty thought that she was not averse to twisting the novel. But do not rush. There is plenty of time for this. When, pleased with the time, the girl got into the car to go home, the driver could not restrain himself and spoke about the poor impudent, who now feels the king. Sue Van objected that this was not his business. Let it just continue to lead the car. The pearl of the Sue family will decide who worthy of its attention and who should be silent. The girl looked out the window and thought that with such potential, Chin Chen would have time to become famous and get rich. She was not far from the truth. Our hero really devoted the time to engage in his development. He climbed the mountain and tried to meditate, accepting new knowledge and skills. The energy of the mountain was not enough to cover the entire volume of the dragon's heritage, but it was enough to replenish the guy's mental powers. He clenched his fist and thought that he had to become stronger at all costs, to become rich and famous, because otherwise he will not even be able to dream of such a girl as Sue Van. Thoughts about her made her heart beat frantically. He needed a worthy way to marry. But then Chin Chen remembered that he was divorced. Poor, asocial, and completely not pulling such a beauty, one cannot fall in love. But for now, you need to do everything possible to establish your life and sooner or later become worthy of such a bride. Then our hero heard that someone was calling him loudly. It was necessary to go down to the villa and figure out what kind of guests came. It was a gang of bandits, led by Yan. They rudely asked where the girl had gone, what the patroness of this louse was making himself. Threats of various kinds and character poured on Chin Chan, but the essence came down to the fact that John would put him in place. The young man tried to warn them that the original owner of the villa, Mr. Su, and he would not give her if there were no good reason. No one listened to him. Chin Chin suggested that the bandits are unlikely to get away with the fact that they entered the private territory and threatened its owner, especially considering his proximity to the SU family. Uninvited guests thought about it, and their ardor was pretty longed for, but Jan continued to stand his ground and build friends. He squatted down and lit a cigarette. It looked near the luxurious villa is especially ridiculous and comical. Finally, the man threw the cigarette butt, jumped up and yelled that they had to beat the insolent, and he would take all the responsibility. Our hero pulled a look and sighed that their life does not teach anything. They would remain anyone if they would not listen to the advice. The bandits did not have time to yell in indignation, as they had already scattered in all directions from the clear and verified blows of Chin Chan's hands. The guy's teeth scattered too, having somehow restored the vertical position. They looked at Yana and informed his brother that they would not overcome such an enemy. He wilted to a slap in one of his friends and shouted that they should fight if they dreamed of living until old age safely. Then the man rang the phone when Jan picked up the phone. He heard Lin Chin Chen screaming that her grandfather, Mr. Lin, was dying. "We need to urgently come to the hospital." The old man was raised by Chin Chan from childhood. The hero could not remain indifferent and asked what was shaking. But John replied that his family did not concern him. Appear in the clinic. Regret it. The guy watched how the car of his former's new husband was leaving and thought about what the chances were that Dr. Sun was back in the city. He looked at the bandits distraught with fear and asked if those car had. The answer was affirmative. In the hospital, Lin Chin Chin tried to get any action from the doctor, but the doctor insisted that there was no chance. This hospital does not conduct operations of such a high level. Yan and wilted the doctor a huge amount of money and stated that the old man should stretch for at least another week. While they finish all the preparations, If he then dies, there is a road there. At this time, the doctor called out Qin Chen. Sun, the best surgeon of the country, stood next to him. He modestly asked to use the operating room. The doctor, stunned from such news, and greeted the eminent colleague, saying that he would gladly provide everything necessary for such a luminaire. Everyone went to inform Mr. Lin, and his granddaughter and his future husband had angrily cursed our hero. They did not understand where such insignificance came from. Qin Chen walked with 2 doctors and thought that he could heal the old man himself, but that would be too suspicious. Su Van at that time was talking to her grandfather, standing on the terrace of their villas. Her hair fluttered beautifully in the wind. The man laughed and asked what the beauty thought about. Maybe about Qin Chen. He lived a long life and therefore saw people through. The girl sighed and admitted that he was right. She was interested in how grandfather would react if she began to meet this young man. Mr. Su thought for a moment, and then with a smile said that if she wanted it so much, he could arrange everything in the best possible way. Su Van asked if this means that after 3 days they would invite Qin Chan to visit, as was planned initially. The old man hugged his granddaughter and said that for her sake he was ready for a lot. The main thing is that the guy would be ready to bear such responsibility. The girl looked into space and thought that this was a difficult decision. But if the hero agrees, she would immediately make a public statement. The sunlight beautifully illuminated her face, and Su Van thought that by a happy chance, a person who was not necessary for the Lin family liked the much more powerful Su family. Not all men behave in a frantic way. We already understood this by the behavior of John, and his friend was the same. At this time, Dr. Sun left the operating room and informed our hero that everything went brilliantly, and the patient should come to his senses soon, and tomorrow he would be able to return home. Qin Chung began to thank the surgeon, but he replied that there was no gratitude, but why it was simply not to give a magic pill like Mr. Su. The guy explained that he would simply not have been allowed to. The line of Lin treats him worse than the dog. He introduced Yana and his ex-wife and felt nausea. The young man was a little embarrassed, finishing his story, and added that he was very grateful to the doctor. The doctor was horrified and shouted that it was unfair. Our hero is now his master, because he should call him Xiao Sun. Just at this moment, the newly mentioned Yang approached them. He smoked a cigarette right in the hospital corridor. With an impudent look, he called out Qin Chan and stated that now he would pay for being sticking to the hospital against his will. The surgeon looked at his master and thought that the scoundrel was lightly at all. Well, what an unpleasant coincidence. Our hero was not afraid. He noticed that Dr. Sunya was accompanied by Qin Hu. The big man just headed for men to understand what was happening. He waved his hand affably and with a smile asked what fate his best friend was here. Jan decided that it was addressed to him and was already extending his hand to greeting. But Qin Hu ignored him and headed straight to Qin Chan. Qin Hu took off his glasses and joyfully said that since everything went successfully, he would ask permission to take Qin Chan home. Yang literally precipitated. He could not understand how the loser, the ex-husband of his lover, about whom all his legs were used to wiping, suddenly became an important person. At that moment, the blonde just invited our hero to a banquet who arranged in his honor. At first, the young man refused. He did not like such events. But when the big man fell to his knees and began to beg to come to the banquet, otherwise Miss Su birded, Qin Chung decided to agree. The bandits all unanimously began to beg for mercy. Yang rang on them for behaving like children. Hearing the name Su Van, our hero fell into pleasant dreams. He plunged into dreams so deeply that he almost forgot to find out the time and address. Recolor. The young man clarified the necessary details and promised to come, but only for the sake of Miss Su. Qin Hu, almost with tears in his eyes, began to thank him, holding out a VIP implant at the party. Together they headed for the car, and Jan continued to yell at his gang, calling them with morons and leaving them out of the hospital. Looking again after Qin Chan, the man hissed that such a garbage was not a place among decent people. He called someone, and in a half-whisper informed the subscriber on the other end of the wire that the time had come to prepare everything, and let him down. The party took place at a hotel called Palace, the most luxurious institution of the city, where exclusively cream of society gathered. Our hero was dressed in a simple way. He shook his head from side to side, trying to find Miss Su in the crowd. Suddenly, a luxurious couple paid attention to him. It was Zhang Hua, a classmate master, and his friend Xu Xiaoxiao, who also studied with Qin Chan. They called out to the guy and invited to chat, but he turned and went away, saying that he had a meeting. Xu Xiaoxiao laughed and shouted into him that let her ex-wife beg for forgiveness, otherwise she would have to become a janitor. The guy replied that they had not seen each other for a long time, and the classmate had not changed at all, unless wrinkles appeared. She began to be indignant, and the hero added that if she is now a free application to the heir to Jianghua, he should behave more decent. When the girl was ready to rush at a guy with her fists, another came in a red checkered skirt and ordered them to stop immediately. It was Gun Yao, the only friend of Qin Chan at the institute. She stated that a luxurious hotel was not suitable for a fight. Jianghua objected that his brother owns the building because they can do everything that would please. He grabbed Gun Yao by the chin and whispered that no one would say a word if she disappears from the party in his company. The scene repeated the second time in the evening and looked disgusting. True, the last time the girl ran away the last time, but now the villain got a blow to the face and strongly strong. The girls gasped in amazement. Nor Xu Xiaoxiao, nor even Gun Yao himself expected anything like that. Qin Chen stood and rubbed his hand with a smile, saying that something seemed to have been engaged in her. Gun Yao was frightened for a friend and said that in vain he was confused in this matter, but the young man assured that everything was in order. It was time for a scoundrel to teach a lesson. Jianghua rubbed his jaw. Without rising from the floor, he promised the hero that he would not only be killed, but also bury, after which he gave the command to the guards to grab the guy. Then a familiar voice was heard. It was Qin Hu. He was heading straight to the place of the skirmish, but went past Jianghua, heading to Qin Chan to apologize. The classmates of our hero were frightened in earnest. They asked to let them go, explaining that they did not know about Chan's friendship with Hu. The owner of the party promised to let them go, but said that he had heard the threat of burying, and if so, then first to get rid of the floor. Shi Xiaoxiao was frightened in earnest and began to beg Qin Chung about mercy, hiding behind their joint institutional past. The guy looked contemptuously at the sneak and said that she did not deserve respect or forgiveness. Qin Hu invited the hero to a well-guarded office and handed prepared gifts, potions, alcohol, tobacco, and credit card. In gratitude for the visit, of course. Everything was very expensive and looked as if it was ordered many days before the meeting. It was valuable gifts. The guy decided to use a credit card, abandoning everything else. He specified whether there would be no problem with it. Hugh replied that it was absolutely the only thing. The hero would be nice to visit the SU family, where the most senior guests will be. Blonda panicked. He suddenly remembered that he had also invited the Lin family, and this could insult Miss Su. Maybe Chen would somehow resolve this issue. The man began to offer various options for the development of events. Each next is incredible than the previous one. The young man did not have time to explain that he would happily help, but he could not. How the healthy man began to thank for his help, and gave a whole trading street as a reward. It was a very generous gift because many artifacts for self-improvement could be found without effort, Qin Chen agreed. After the party, our hero went outside. He was a little tired and wanted to walk alone. It was not possible to implement the idea. The phone rang. It was Grandfather Lin. He asked to come to him. There was a conversation. The old man's voice was excited, and it became obvious that it was better to come right now, without putting it off in a long box. There was no one else in the hospital, and Qin Chen took his grandfather by the hand. He had not shown warm feelings for him for a long time due to the condemnation of other relatives. The old man apologized for all his misconduct and said that he was very grateful to the hero for helping him with a doctor. The guy replied that there was no need to blame himself. If it weren't for the liner, he, perhaps, had not been alive for a long time. He nodded and said that he had called for this and called the young man. What Chen heard was no longer a secret for him, but it was not easy to hear it from the old man. Mr. Lin said that the hero was not an orphan at all. 20 years ago, when the line of Lin was engaged in fishing, he met a strange man on the seashore. He stood on the water like a wizard. In his eyes, there was no fear of the whole flotilla of ships ready to attack. The battle was fierce. The man fought that the god of war, in the end, he destroyed all the warships. After the battle, a strange long-haired man entrusted Mr. Lin something very valuable, the most valuable that he had, son. He asked to look after the child until he heals his wounds as soon as he recovers. He would return and take the baby. This was Qin Chen. The old man cried and said that the family took the current position thanks to the blessing of the hero's father. He apologized and asked at least dinner with him sometimes. The guy nodded. The next morning, the young man went to the SU family mansion. He wanted to talk with Mr. Su himself and with his granddaughter. He brought a whole handful of immortality, explaining that their main function is to restore the vitality of qi due to a tide in the body of energy. The old man was invited by Huan Luna, master of martial arts. The man noted that these pills were a real treasure. He did not think that someone else could produce something similar. He asked our hero where he learned this, to which the guy replied that he had neither a family nor a clan, and this knowledge was gained intuitively. The information was very surprised by the man. He leaned toward Chinu and whispered whether the one is sure that his abilities have no demonic nature. Suvan heard the question and replied that this was excluded. The young man healed his grandfather, and indeed, a good person. Huan Lun replied that this can be done both with the help of nature gifts and using demonic practices. How to know what exactly Qin Chen used? Seeing that the man tensed, the young man went up to him and advised him to straighten his shoulders and relax the muscles of the legs a little. The next moment, he made an incredible jump, dodging Huan Luna's sudden attack. The man replied that there was enough chatter from him. Even if someone is right, who is to blame? The power of martial arts will judge. Chen raised his hands and objected that he did not want to offend Mr. Su's friend, injuring him. The warrior boiled. That he would touch him great success for the kid. Su Van asked the guy not to do this, but he accepted the challenge and stood in a combat position, accumulating energy in his fingertips. The sounds of blows followed, and the next moment a man was lying on the floor unconscious. Mr. Su laughed. He did not expect that our hero was so strong. His granddaughter clung to Qin Chan and asked if everything was in order, and if he had hurt his hand. The guy replied that everything was fine. The girl painfully grabbed the hero by the hand and said that Mr. Huan was very good. If the guy had lost, he would have left the house only with his feet forward. He laughed and assured the beauty that he was still able to move independently, appreciated everything. And Su Van noticed that she would like the same in the future. The hero asked what she had in mind. The girl turned sharply and went to the balcony, answering only that the first thing that occurred to me said, soon, the guy joined her and specified whether they could invite another person to this small business meeting. Su Van asked who it would be, to which the young man replied that he would like to see Chin Hu if possible. The granddaughter of Mr. Su replied that adding a plate and a couple of sticks is not so difficult. And then suddenly she took the hero by the hand and asked what kind of relationship she was with her. The guy asked what she had received a strong crack, the beauty exclaimed. Was it really so difficult to decide in a couple of days? The girl suddenly became serious and asked if he would defend her in the future if an offender appeared. Qin Chen proudly and confidently said that until he offended her to offend her, no creature in the whole world dares. They held hands. The scene was very romantic. For complete happiness, there was not enough only to kiss. Then there was a peppy voice of Mr. Su, who said that he bought a rare 100-year-old plant at the auction, especially for the hero. A couple broke out. Both reddened. Hearing about the auction, Su Van asked grandfather to let Qin Chan let her go with her. He laughed and specified whether he would tear him to pieces there. Only now there was one small nuance. For such an event, a young man should be dressed more likely. A few hours later, both were already in a huge shopping center. It was not so easy to choose an outfit among many expensive boutiques. Our hero was embarrassed by both the situation and the cosmic prices of clothes. But the girl confidently chose more and more costumes, forcing him to try on and not grumble. It was the fitting that inspired her most. Qin Chan had a really good figure. Finally, the desired image was selected. The young man looked so gorgeous that even the cellar whisper called him a handsome man in a whisper. Su Van was delighted. She ran around, adding all new details to the image, and looked at the guy like a supermodel in love. The young man was finally embarrassed and threw up his hands up, asking him to stop. He did not want to buy half the store at all. Then a malicious laugh was heard. John, and asked if the loser was not a keeper. The ex-wife seemed to be pursued by Qin Chan, appearing in the most unexpected places. This was already starting to bother Su Van. The girl even smiled, imagining that they were being watched and intentionally persecuted. Jan continued, saying that he was going to auction and buy everything he wants there, so let them envy silently. Su Van called him a talker and asked who would pay for all this, whether they robbed the bank. At the auction, everything went on as usual. He took place in a huge conference hall, and immediately it became clear why Qin Chan bought a luxurious suit. Prices for displayed lots were simply inhuman. $1 million, 1.5 per lot. But those who wanted to purchase them were not reduced. The first few bets made Yang, and Lover gently put his head on his shoulder with the words of praise. But then, behind him, someone raised a bet and offered $5 million for the same lot. The couple looked around indignantly. It was Su Van. Qin Chen was frightened. Is it not too much? But the girl whispered that everything was in order. The manager congratulated the guest at the number 8 on the successful acquisition of the lot of eternal love and announced a break in the auction. Su Van and Qin Chen left the hall. Both looked extremely satisfied, although the bought ring seemed somewhat expensive. Then they were attacked by the hero's ex-wife shouts that it was supposed to be a wedding ring at their wedding with Jan. How could he take him from under her nose? The woman demanded to give the ring, but Chen said that if a person is disgusting, a beautiful decoration will not suit him. Su Van was happy to drink a cocktail. While Lin continued to scandal, Yang apologized to the Su family, explaining that if he knew that Van would like the ring, he would not have entered the auction and raised the bet. Just at that moment, the girl was brought to the girl, but she did not feel joy, only anger due to the inappropriate flattery of Jan the Ses. For a moment, she imagined that the jewelry could put her lover on her finger, but from this she began to be angry even more. Su Van took the ring in her hand and asked who told him that she liked it at all, was not ready for such a man. The beauty explained that she simply did not want them to get a jewelry with a romantic name. Lin Chin Chung asked her future husband why he suffers such bullying, and the design of the ring did not like Su Van. The girl kept the jewelry on his outstretched hand. It looked strange. Soon it became clear why. The beauty threw the ring through the window into the decorative pond with the words that if they want, they can go and get it. Su Van and Qin Chen turned around and went away. Lin hissed to Yana that they were just mocking them. And most likely they didn't throw the jewelry, they just pretended to be. After all, no one throws 5 million to the wind so that the future wife does not be upset. The man promises to buy a final auction lot for her. Young people returned to the hall and our hero told his friend that he did not understand why she threw the ring. The girl shrugged and replied that there was nothing special in him. The rich has his own quirks, the guy decided. But then Su Van added that it was just necessary to do. The manager announced the final lot of the auction, and the beauty explained that the one who is going to humiliate others should always be ahead and humiliate first. The young man wanted to ask something else, but he realized that they would not hear him. The girl was delighted with the necklace, which was put up in the final. Qin Chen also looked at the jewelry with admiration, but he was a little sorry that the promised rare plant, which Mr. Su spoke about, was not put up for sale this time. The guy sighed that then it was necessary to try good luck next time, and immediately decided to buy a necklace to give Su Van. Meanwhile, the rates grew up. 2 million were offered for the decoration, then 3 or even 3.5. Taking a girl with a number from the girl, our hero lifted her and confidently offered a price of 5 million. Everyone began to look around to see what kind of mysterious 8th number, which was ready to spend such an amount for the second time in the evening. Ian could not understand what was happening. Why the guy holds the number? Why Miss Su does nothing, as he will now fulfill the promise this tench. The man lifted the sign and offered the price of 5.5 million. His companion did not fall off the chair with joy and began to thank him. Qin Chen again raised a sign and offered 6 million on the map that Qin Hu gave him. There were 10 million, and another 35 he received from Trading Street. Jan offered 6.5 million. Our hero, in turn, raised the bet to 7. The excitement of both erupted. Qin Chen reached 8 million, and it became clear that his opponent could no longer compete with him on an equal footing. And beside his rage, Yang proposed 8 million and 10,000. He was extremely angry and wanted to win at all costs, Lin whispered, which perhaps should slow down and give in. Our hero exhaled. He realized that this could last a long time. Therefore, decisive measures should be taken. With a completely calm face, the guy raised a sign and voiced his final rate. 20 million. 20 million times. 20 million 2. 20 million 3. And now our hero congratulated a crystal kiss on the acquisition of a necklace. The whole hall began to look around. Without waiting for a crowd of curious around them, Qin Chen grabbed Su Van by the hand and dragged him to the car. They fled like mischievous children. When the door of the car slammed shut, both laughed. The guy admitted that for a moment he imagined that they were playing spies. The girl with a smile noticed that the hero was able to surprise the whole hall of the audience in a couple of minutes. He was definitely a great future. Chen looked at her in love and said that there was only one reason, and she was sitting next to him, smiling. The guy asked if he could put on Su Van a necklace, since there was such a right moment. The girl was embarrassed, but agreed, and then coquettishly added that he could not even ask. When the beauty put on the jewelry, the hero just gasped. She was so magnificent and elegant. He asked in an interrupted voice, if in the future he succeeds and succeed, Su Van would agree to become his wife. The girl took his hand and reported that when you like someone, it does not matter the status, but she is sure that his future will be brilliant and she waits impatiently. Su Van continued to gently hold the guy's hand, and he realized that it was absolutely not necessary to insist on a more concrete answer. Everything is clear. At this time, Yang and Lin tried to find a ring in the pond, both got wet to the thread, and were incredibly upset, especially the girl. To achieve his goal, Qin Chen had to constantly improve. That evening, he went to the mountain to get the energy of spirits. The guy concentrated as much as possible. His QE reached the 3rd level, but it was necessary to continue further in order to accumulate enough strength. It took several days. Then the phone rang. It was Qin Hu, who asked to come immediately. A small problem arose. The place where he was supposed to come was among rivers and forests. In the energy sense, it was very good. Mr. Bai noted that in such a place there should not have been problems, to which Qin Hu asked to explain how then what happened could happen. The fall of a worker from the forests could be explained by an accident, but as they could at once, several screws were weakened at the same time. Hu added that people at a construction site are so little. Someone is sick, someone has family problems. He does not believe in paranormal, but here is clearly something wrong. The work is standing. Here Qin Chen appeared. He specially dressed in his only expensive costume to impress Mr. Baya. The guy said that problems can be due to rivers and mountains. The fog rises regularly and it is too dense. As for ordinary fog, Qin Hu asked what to do. It may be worth suspending work to deal with the fog. Our hero noticed that this is not necessary. He said that the problem would remain after the completion of construction, if it is not solved right now. And the point here is not at the location of the construction site. Bai Qian objected that even he did not have such a force to rectify the situation where the stranger has so much self-confidence. The guy replied that he was young and did not give instructions, but volunteered to help. Excessive caution would not hurt. Bai Qian agreed to try, but if nothing happens, he will count on an apology from our hero. They ordered the worker to dig in the place that the young man indicated when the depth of the pit reached 5 meters. The digger stopped. The man asked how long he had to work for a long time. Qin Hu had doubts about Chan's competence. He thought that he was in vain trusted in the opinion of the young man. Now they did not solve the problem, and Bai Qian was offended, and he did not know where to find such a good master. Then there was a knock of a shovel about something solid, and the worker said that he had found a box. A few minutes later, all three looked at the mysterious case. Inside was a dagger, wrapped in a special canvas with runes. The blade enveloped a pink glow, the same shade as the fog at the construction site. Qin Hu asked Bai Qian if he knew what it was. The master nodded and asked if a man had quarreled with someone recently. He added that this item brings bloody disasters. The construction is now cursed, and it is impossible to continue work here in any case. The blonde was not ready for such news. He scaredly asked what to do now and whether anyone could help. Bai Qian replied that he could not cope with such things, but he advised him to turn to Qin Chan because he prompted that he needed to look for a dagger. And where to look? When the damned blade was brought to our hero, he was not at all scared, rather deeply thought. Listening to the prayer for help, the guy agreed to take the blade to his home with a smile and already figure out how to neutralize him. Hu promised all possible awards in gratitude for his help. When farewell, Bai Qian turned to a young man with the question of who he is and where. Such knowledge and skills at a young age were a rarity. Qin Chen waved his hand and said that he has neither a family nor a clan. Therefore, to discuss this topic does not make the slightest sense. The master replied that it was incredible. In order to find out what a damned object fell into his hands, our hero went to his mountain. At the top, he unfolded the fabric and once again carefully examined the dagger. At first, nothing came to mind. Then the young man remembered that he felt the same energy from Mr. Su when he was inconspicuously ill. Maybe the family had enemies. Having gathered all his strength, the guy decided to destroy this dangerous artifact. He already had enough energy. When the blade began to crumble into small fragments, losing his magical properties, the hero decided that an important meeting would take place tomorrow, and he was simply obliged to calculate who the enemy. Already 4 hours before the event, which was supposed to take place in the garden, the press appeared at the scene to conduct a direct report. One of the guests asked Jan, and in honor of which they were invited, the man replied that probably in the face of the family, Lin Klain Su sees enemies, because they simply decided to put dust in the eyes. The guest objected and said that he heard this banquet in honor of a person who appeared here recently. John almost choked on champagne. Then the ex-wife of Qin Chan noticed him and screamed that she would call the guard now. He had no place at such events. The girl added something else about the reputation of her family, and here our hero could not stand it and asked what the line is Lin's family. The ex-wife got rid of it in earnest and really called the guard. She continued to scream at the whole throat. When the servants of the order came up, she explained that there was an illegal visitor who penetrated the party thanks to her family. But something went wrong. The guard grabbed the woman by the hand and asked to stop making noise. Otherwise, she would have to leave the territory. Lin did not calm down because the men had to literally take her under his arms to the exit for the screams and insults of the guest. Then Miss Su appeared. She was so beautiful that everyone gasped. The girl said that Mr. Chin Chen is the most honorable guest today, and anyone who does not agree with this should leave. Then Jan began to suspect that it was Chin Chen, that special guest for which the event was organized. This extremely surprised him. Su Van picked up a microphone and informed the audience that today she gathered them all in order to introduce one person. This is Chin Chen, Mr. Chin. The reaction of the guests was not the best. The majority simply did not understand why they invited some unknown guy to the stage. Then, an impressive man in a red tie approached Chin Chan and suggested that the guy was so scared that he could not utter words. Our hero gathered with the spirit and said that maybe now he does not look a worthy party for Suvan. But in the near future he intends to change this. The crowd reacted more affably, and even the former classmate Chan began to applaud him and shouted greetings, and other guests soon joined. The guy complained to Suvan what to warn before inviting to the stage. The girl replied that he managed perfectly. Then Mr. Su called both and introduced Chen Quan, a major businessman engaged in the sale of building materials in Bincheng. He said that cooperation cannot be avoided, so it is worth getting to know each other better. But Chin Cheng interested a bracelet on the man's hand. The guy explained how the dead do not need money, so the living should not in contact with such things. If the jewelry is not removed, someone from the family will die. Chen Quan yelled that the bracelet was brought to him from the temple. He should attract wealth. Why would the monk deceive? Our hero asked if it was a good monk. Realizing that his son was accused of evil witchcraft, the man called a bodyguard named Scar and ordered to teach the impudent. The red-haired healthy man with a scar began to knead his hands, showing with his whole appearance that someone was not to do. Chen Quan apologized to Mr. Su and asked him not to keep evil for him for what would happen now. Mr. Su did not move, but quietly asked Su Van if she was going to help Chin Chan. The girl replied that no. The beauty explained that the situation itself has put the guy in an uncomfortable position, but he knows how to cope with such troubles on his own. While Su Van said that she believes in a hero who had never disappointed, he easily evaded the first blow of the scars. Chin Chin struck his blow so lightning speed that the enemy did not have time to defend himself and flew off a few meters back with curses. The man rose, wiping blood from his face. He announced to the master that he intended to use a special technique. The owner gave good. Shram squeezed his fist and asked everyone present for forgiveness for his further actions. The sight promised to be bloody. The man applied the blow of combat energy, and around him a blast wave formed, which scattered many spectators to the sides. Our hero stood on his feet and thought that the enemy had about the third level of ki cleansing, but this is quite on his teeth. In response, Chin Chin began to collect all his energy for a blow. There was a funnel of the yellow glow which fell on the scars. He got into the combat rack and said that since the guy also owns military equipment, he would not restrain himself, after which he disappeared. The man attacked the young man from the back, hoping that the battle would end there, but Chen was ready to attack. At the last moment, he turned and struggled the enemy with a fist, shrouded in ki energy. The blow was so strong that the concrete slabs under our hero could not stand it. A recess formed in the ground. The scar survived and said that the boy was not bad, but he had not yet finished. Let him prepare for death if he does not run away. He jumped up high, preparing a hit with his foot in a special destructive technique using ki. The scar collapsed on Chin Chan with such force that both fell into a hole formed by a blow. Dust and fragments scattered in all directions. Su Van and Mr. Su looked excitedly at what was happening, wondering if the young man would survive. A scar with a slight smile said that so the end of a small bipod from the Su clan had come to an end. It was not worth lifting his nose. He folded his arms over his chest and gently emerged from the dust and sand clubs raised by his blow, which gradually settled on the ground. The next moment, a strong and confident hand of our hero emerged from nowhere. His fingers closed, and the bodyguard was immobilized. With all his might, Chin Chen held both hands of the enemy. He was physically strong. Moreover, he used the internal energy of ki. Looking into the eyes of the scar, the young man asked if all this was what his opponent was capable of. The man once again tried to free himself and attack, but all that he managed to straighten his hand. In the eyes of Qin-chan flashed the yellow radiance of the dragon's strength. He was ready to complete this battle in the next seconds. Shram called him a bastard. He realized that he was no longer on his feet. The enemy began his decisive attack. Our hero threw a man so high that when he fell, he would not have a single whole bone if he had not had special abilities. When the scar approached the ground, it became obvious that his defense saved from death, but not from damage. Horror was reflected in the eyes of the bodyguard. He collapsed with such force that he flew up a little up from the blow. It would be strange if the warrior had not lost consciousness. Our hero crouched over him to check the pulse, the heartbeat was present, and the guy announced that he was the winner of the battle. The scar became conscious and said in a weak voice that he recognized his defeat. He had no strength to rise. Mr. Su reassured the winner and admitted that he did not expect the guy so good. Su Van was happy that the guy was not injured. Chen Quan approached our hero and stated that despite his skills, he doubts that the bracelet was dangerous. The young man shrugged, because it was not about the future of his family. The man offered a bet if nothing happens to his family in the next 3 days, Qin Chen will have to apologize, kneeling. The guy agreed, clarifying what would happen if troubles appeared. The man yelled that he would kneel and publicly apologize to his own way. The young man answered with consent and joyfully raised his hand up, reinforcing his determination with a gesture. The people around were jokes that the guy was some kind of strange. 2 strangers whispered that the hero is only on the 3rd degree of cleansing of Qi. It should be eliminated from him before he became stronger. The party continued. Someone was sitting at the table, someone preferred to dance, but most guests were busy communicating in the garden. Then, some girl stopped at the entrance and began to look through the eyes of our hero. He was just talking with Suvan and some bearded man. She came closer and Qin Chen recognized one of Mr. Lin's granddaughter. She handed him some kind of wooden case. The guy asked that this was, to which the beauty replied that his grandfather asked him to convey these things. He could not come, as he was too weak. The young man nodded and said that he would take the box out of respect for the old man, after which he said goodbye. The girl did not expect that they would not even want to talk to her. She hoped to get acquainted with Miss Su, but still said goodbye and went. Suvan leaned to see what Qin-chan was brought behind the box. The guy explained that his grandfather Lin asked him to convey it, that he did not know inside. Raising the lid, Qin-chan saw a stone, a dragon figure, and a letter addressed to him. That is, the son of a dragon. Our hero was very surprised why so far no one had informed him of a letter from his father and did not give him. Suvan advised not to open an envelope at the event. There were too many extra eyes and ears. Completely inappropriate moment. The guy agreed that he needed to move somewhere so that no one and nothing prevented him from reading such an important message. The girl said that the Su family has a special secret room she would have suitable for these purposes. The guy went into the room and thought that Suvan was so careful that he himself began to worry about the contents of the letter. The hero carefully opened the envelope and began to read. The main idea was that one should not try to find his mother, Zhou Qin, who lives in the capital. Then there was information that the woman is an ordinary person, and he is the guardian of the dragon power, because it was better not to meet them. The letter ended with the words that he should be a worthy keeper. Qin sighed heavily, trying to realize what he read. It seemed that this world was arranged somewhat more complicated than he used to think about him. The young man left the room and, before going to Suvan, took another glass of cocktail. The girl was waiting for him and carefully asked if he had read a message. Qin took a big sip and nodded. The beauty did not ask about the details. She understood that this was his personal business. If she wanted, she would share it. At that moment, the doors swung open and a man burst into the room, screaming that the trouble was happening. He was in such a hurry that he almost fell. This was one of the guards, Chen Quan, who ran to Mr. Su and said that his owner had a trouble. The man said that when he brought the master home, his wife was completely distraught, grabbed the kitchen knife and began to attack everyone. He barely managed to escape to call for help. Mr. Su was interested in those present who could go to the rescue. No one volunteered, citing the fact that this was a matter for professionals. Then, Qin took a step forward and said that he was ready to go to Chen Quan. Even if he couldn't do anything, he would at least try. He also warned about the bracelet. He looked at Suvan, as if asking the girl whether it was possible to entrust her box. She smiled and thought, the beauty said that the decision is true and should go. She asked our hero not to worry about anything. He gazed gently at her and smiled, answering that he would now calmly go. without clogging his head with extra thoughts. Chen Quan's mansion was luxurious, and outwardly nothing indicated that a real family drama flared up inside. Shram reported Qinchan that they temporarily secured themselves, tying the woman to one of the columns. But you need to figure out what to do next. Chen Quan told the guard that he had already called a specialist. It remains only to wait for his arrival. It seems that the crawled boy was right to the bracelet. Our hero could not hold back a sigh. And the man began to scream that when he sent for help, he did not expect that he would come. Quan continued to poke his finger at a young man. The same bracelet was still on his hand. A suspicious glow appeared around him. The guy sighed again and informed the man that if he did not remove the decoration from his hand right now, then he would be too late. Then the son of the owner of the house went down the stairs and said that this sacred bracelet was bought hundreds of kilometers from here. His father added that someone so far makes no sense to want him to be evil. Qinchan replied that he would not climb into their family affairs, but let it be clarified once and for all. If they come to him later for help, they will receive a refusal. Chen Quan called him a balabol, that he had no power, and offered to leave the house as soon as possible. Everything should improve with his departure. Then the servant reported that the Master Bai had arrived. The owner of the house began to bow to him in courtesy and invite him to enter. The man was in no hurry. The first thing he greeted our hero with a bow, surprised why he was invited if the Master Qin is already here. He leaned toward the guy and in a whisper asked how bad everything was. If the hero did not succeed, then he was generally powerless. Qin Chen replied that he was not entrusted with the problem. Bai was shocked by the fact that someone dares to drive such a strong master, but still decided to see what was the matter and climbed after his equipment. He applied special vision and saw that the woman was constrained by mental chains. A dangerous red glow spread around her. The woman fought in the inner struggle with the demons. The Master Bai in fear closed his hands, not knowing what to do. The man in horror explained that someone was definitely in the wife of Mr. Quan, and he could not help in this situation. Chen Quan grabbed him by the clothes and began to scream violently, that he would not allow that the irreparable happen to his beloved. His son tried to slip away. Then Master Bai replied that Qin Chen is much stronger than him, because if he undertook to help them, then there is a probability of a successful outcome of the case. The owner of the house, without thinking twice, approached our hero. Now he was polite and called him Master Qin, begging him to save his wife. The guy smiled and reminded the promise of kneeling and asking for forgiveness in front of the whole city. Quan said that this was somehow too much and offered to solve the issue with the help of money. He thought a little and then exclaimed that he was ready to pay 50 million and really hopes that this would be enough. Qin Chen thought the amount was impressive and he needed to take care of the future. It seems that he would have to agree. Suddenly, he noticed boxes with valuable herbs and ingredients of potions behind Chen Quan, and said that the contents of these shelves are much more expensive. The hero continued that the point is not that he refuses to help, but that a lot of resources may be required to restore strength after that. The owner of the house realized that they had practically agreed to help him, offered to pick up all these healing herbs. He does not mind. Qin Chen saw that he had achieved what he wanted and shook his hand, promising to save his wife. Chen Quan scattered in thanks. The guy held out his hand forward and said that he was waiting. The man decided that he wanted to get a reward right now and tensed, looking silently at the hero. The young man finally surrendered his nerves, and he yelled loudly so that he immediately removed the bracelet from his hand. This must be done right now. Having received the jewelry, our hero enveloped him with a halo of his strength. Securing all those present, Qin Chen thought that since he had a bracelet from him, you could safely experiment. He used his internal energy of Qi and the beads began to collapse one by one, as if on command. At the same moment, the woman chopped it overly on the floor. Torn chains fell around her. Master Bai exclaimed joyfully that he was sure that Qin Chen would cope. While Chen Quan raised his wife, trying to find out how she feels, our hero looked around in search of their offspring. Finally, he noticed the one he was looking for, and with a displeased face asked to come closer and explain himself. The young man shook his head from side to side, and in fear was babbling that he was not to blame, and he did not want anything like that. The next moment, he ran to the door on bending legs, but Qin Chen made him stop. Shram dragged his son Chen Quan literally by the scruff and asked what they intend to do with him. Our hero replied that the situation in the house is already tense, so they will go to his house to interrogate the young man. So the Scar with the guy and Qin Chen found themselves at his Villa Lunhaishan at the very top of the mountain. The moonlight flooded everything around. The bodyguard had to wave his fist several times, and the young man began to war that he would tell everything now. The young man thought why this scar decided to help him. Shortly before that, he came up and volunteered to follow him everywhere, agreeing to work for food. Meanwhile, the son of Chen Quan began his story about how and where the bracelet received. There was nothing interesting in history. A month ago, in the temple, he met a man who promised that the jewelry would protect his house and family during the year. Chen asked if the young man had the idea that free cheese happens only in the mousetrap. The guy began to sob and babble about the fact that this is the best temple of the country. He could not even think about the fact that the villain could be met there. They had lunch with that man several times. He said that he got a bracelet from his older brother after his son Chen Quan said that his family was conducting a successful business. The reason he agreed to accept the gift and take the decoration in the fact that the new acquaintance seemed to be a good person. After long questioning, he told the young man where to find an expert. Swan Minf was a large clan, worked with dark energy, but still became popular among people. Chen looked at the young man as he was insane. How could one turn for the services to the dark magicians, knowing what energy they would invest as a gift? He was already writing on the floor and knocked with his fists with shouts that, "What is the difference? Who to pay if the bracelet would work?" Then he leaned his forehead against the floor and cried that he did not think that everything would turn into such a disaster. Did not want to harm anyone. Our hero grabbed his head and sighed that he would never understand the rich. How can you earn a lot of money and at the same time be so naive? The guy leaned back in an armchair. He knew everything now, because he asked him to take his son Chen Quan to his house. Chen thought that the main function of the Dark Clan was to lure the rich, if their goal is the Su family, now far from the finale. He remembered the damn dagger found on the construction site, and thought that definitely his patrons have ill wishers. As for the suspects, first you need to check the clan Zhuanminf, who had just mentioned the young man. The hero began to look for information in his knowledge gained from the dragon. It was the oldest and stronger dark clan specializing in curses. Their elder reached the foundation of power, and the methods have always been effective. The clan was closely connected with the bureaucracy and stood behind many political scandals. Chen realized that they were just performers and needed to find out who is the customer. It seemed to him that from tension the brains would squeeze and flow through the ears. Now there was not the slightest opportunity to do this matter. But then our hero remembered the herbs donated by Chen Quan. With such opportunities by the night, he would reach progress in chi growth. And then he will be on the shoulder. In the morning, the guy woke up pretty rumpled. The ingredients looked good, but their quality left much to be desired. Nevertheless, he reached the 6th level of ki cleansing. Then a scar appeared in front of him and said that Chin Chung was invited to lunch at Mr. Su's house. It looked somehow too officially. Usually he just came. The scar added that the dinner would begin at noon. And then the guy remembered that he did not show the new subordinate where the food was and where his place to sleep. The young man was embarrassed to hear that the man was sleeping in the courtyard. He offered him one of the empty bedrooms of the villa and promised to show several exercises that reduce the pain in the muscles. Shram clearly did not expect such kindness and began to thank Chin Chan. His cheeks were puzzled. The guy was a little embarrassed and said that he was always happy to help. A few minutes before noon, our hero in his only expensive suit arrived in the residence of Mr. Su. He was met by the maid, who showed him where to go. The guy thought that all this was not just like that, apparently. Something happened. In the room where he was held, a young man was standing next to Miss Su, who greeted Chin Chung and said that he would never believe that the rabbits had cured Mr. Su. He raised beautiful hands with long fingers to his face and began to sort them out, saying that the most important thing in treatment was high-quality ingredients. The man presented to Mr. Su a gift, the Tianshan White Lotus, a magnificent medicine ordered specifically for the old man. Chin Chin skeptically looked at the present and said that he was a little rot. The guy yelled indignantly that the snowy lotus was not rot. But there was a fortune. Another thing is a beautiful green pearl from the most important ingredients of the highest sample, presented in the case. Our hero presented Mr. Su pill of spiritual improvement, enhancing the internal energy, on which he worked all night. The stranger slammed his hands, saying that he saw how such sweets were sold near the school. Our hero yelled that the pill cost tens of millions. Young people stood opposite each other and poured mud on gifts brought by each. Both were beside themselves with anger. But then suddenly the guest, who, by the way, was called Di Chao, grabbed Su Van by the hand. Considering that this argument would be decisive in the dispute, the young man said that he was tired of bickering due to nonsense. All the same, the main thing is that he was the future son-in-law of Mr. Su, and that the beggar decided to take his time, He did not understand. He called Chin-chan garbage, who has no right to sit at the table with them. Her husband needs to be chosen from a good family, like him. When the clans are united, there will be no problems with money. Chin-chan asked if the guy was able to think at least something but money, because a real marriage should be concluded by love. Our hero added that the future, in his opinion, is in talent and strength, and never in money. His enemy at that time shouted that he loves Suvan. He could not live without her. Finally, Deku ended the arguments, and he showed Chan a fist with the question that may be enough to scratch his tongue. You can talk more serious. With a cry that now the scoundrel and garbage will receive deservedly, the Major swung and set off on the attack. His fist described a wide arc, but for some magical reason did not reach his goal. Apparently, the enemy was in no hurry to develop a conflict. Then Di-Chao waved again. Now he was more determined, and Chin-Chen decided to allow himself to hit. He did not warn the guy about what he owns a special force, because when his fist crashed into his chest, shrouded in the radiance of Ki, the bone could not stand the bone. With a terrible scream, Di-Chao bounced to the side, holding onto a broken limb. Around him, with a slightly less quiet Crochet galloped, trying to find out what had happened. The young man yelled that he would not leave this and later would definitely deal with Chin-Chan, after which he left. Our hero looked after him and hissed that the next boob was a pan, but Suvan interrupted him, calling him by name. Mr. Su was sad. He grabbed his head and explained that Deku was the son of a large industrialist, and the guy had just gotten a big trouble. The young man assured them that everything is in order and he wants to tell Suvan and Mr. Su if they allow. Chin-Chin talked about how a few days ago he dug a damn knife that caused a strange fog at their construction site. A curse was imposed on the blade, as well as that bracelet that his son gave Chan Quan, after which the guy's mother was obsessed with demons. At first, our hero thought that this was just a coincidence, but then he realized that in both cases the Su family could suffer. He ended his speech with the words that when he first met Mr. Su and he was very sick, he felt the same magical energy as the objects. Suvan and grandfather looked at each other silently. They did not say anything for a long time, considering what they heard. Then the old man smiled, and the girl, unable to restrain herself, laughed, covering her mouth with her hand with embarrassment. The young man looked at them and could not understand what was the matter. He did not joke where such a reaction was from. Suvan explained that in this small city no one dares to attack them. Yes, she guesses who can stand behind all this, but so far she will not tell and does not need help. The fact is that neither the guy nor to anyone from the family to remove this curse is beyond the power, and the open conflict would be extremely dangerous. Our hero was surprised and asked if there is really no way to deal with this. The girl replied that there was, but time had not yet come. Chin-Chin raised an eyebrow in surprise. He did not understand what to wait, and when the right moment would come, the beauty took an elegant cup of thin porcelain from the shelf and asked if he knew what it was. On the cup there was a beautiful villa in a traditional style, almost a palace, as beautiful as the dishes of a thin work on which the image was applied. The guy looked puzzled at the drawing and said that he had heard about this place, but he really knew nothing about him. Suvan sadly lowered her eyes and explained that they had lived there before, were the most respected family in the capital. Everything was beautiful, and the family, the house, and the surrounding territories and the business. But enemies appeared. Her grandfather, who could not walk then, was expelled not only from the family residence, but also from the city itself. 2 years later, the Wanderers settled in Bansan. They began with the very bottom and achieved their current position and status with hard difficulty. But people are not omnipotent, and it is difficult to resist the enemies. They soon found them. Suvan ended that their present life seems to be a real paradise compared to those times. Chin-Chin was very angry when he heard the story of the family. He promised that he would help Mr. Su and his granddaughter return everything that they lost. Both were embarrassed and replied that they did not think about the future in this vein. They simply could not forget the humiliation experienced. Suddenly, Suvan became completely different, hard and decisive. She stated that someday she would make the offenders feel the same. But then the beauty came to her senses that she said superfluous and added that it was too early to talk about it. The young man should think about himself and get to his feet before solving the problems of her family. Our hero accepted the pathos pose and promised that he would need only 3 years to help them return its former greatness. The capital will fall to the feet of Suvan. The girl smiled and embarrassedly noted that she wanted to once again ask him about what was already being discussed. Coquettly laying a strand of hair behind the ear, the beauty asked if he was able to cope with all the problems alone. The guy with a gesture pointed to his heart and said with a decisive look that Suvan and her grandfather swear in this. Just at that moment, on a chic villa surrounded by palm trees, Diko talked about what happened to his father. He was extremely excited and thickened the colors, hearing that Qin had already scored some kind of man to half-death, and now he attacked his son. The man hissed that no one would touch this face, grabbing Di Chao by the chin. The man stood up abruptly, throwing the guy to the side, and asked if this Qin is such a psycho. Then why he let go of his son after a couple of blows. Watching how the father puts on the cloak offered to him, the young man joyfully asked if he would go to teach the lesson to the offender. An elderly man muttered through his teeth that idiots are unacceptable. He will teach the SU family a lesson. And since Suvan liked the guy, he would get her soon. Soon, the premium car was already parked near the villa, where the family of Mr. Su lived. The servant tried to stop the angry Mr. D, who broke into the hall and intended to move to the owner's office without warning. Spitting on the etiquette, the man flew into the main hall and began to turn his head around, asking that everything is so bad that none of the owners went out to greet him. Qin was ready for this and calmly noted the fact that he was probably the father of Di Chao. The guy was sitting on the couch, throwing his leg on his foot, and was completely relaxed. He had a cup of tea in his hands. The man clenched his fists. Dee asked in a menacing tone whether he was the impudent that he dared to beat his son. He looked angrily at our hero, almost rotating with his eyes. The young man explained that Di Chao had a commotion, causing discomfort by Mr. Su. He decided to teach him a lesson in good manners. Mr. D was brutalized and stated that now he will teach a lesson. And Qin and the Su family, pathetic little people like them, have no right to show their teeth. He stated that their family is the most influential in Bansen. And for Suvan, his son is an enviable groom who will allow you to relax with such a famous family. The man ordered the guy to kneel and apologize. Then he would allow him to leave alive, and the girl will have a chance to marry Di Chao. Our hero angrily asked what would happen if he did not bow his knees, to which Mr. D promised that he and Su Van would spend the rest of the days in wheelchairs. Qin could endure any threats addressed to him, but he could not allow anyone to offend the girl. He enveloped T with 2 fingers and prepared to apply the spell. The next moment, his hand described the arc and touched right to the forehead of Father Di Chao. The man squinted and puzzled. Mr. D grabbed his head in horror and shouted what the hell he did at all. What kind of nonsense was happening? The guy calmly replied that it was time to reap the fruits for looking down at him and at the Su family. The man, puzzled, asked why nothing hurts, and then muttered that he was not hit, but only barely touched what was the matter. He began to threaten Qin with a finger and warn, so that this idiot was silent after this at all and would not blame anyone for anything. Smiling cheerfully, the young man convinced him that he could not worry about this at all. He achieved what he wanted. The hero exhaled wearily. Everything worked. We can assume that the issue is resolved with Mr. Dai and the problem is eliminated. Then Suvan called him, asking doubtfully, "Did it really end well and now they will be left alone?" Qin reassured the girl, explaining that he used a special spell. For the body it is harmless, but the mind slowly turns into jelly. Our hero explained that he should not worry. After 3 days the man would come running and will beg for mercy. Let him send him to the Villa Lunhaishan. Well, now Qin goes to the neighboring city to the drugs market. You need to buy some ingredients. Soon, the Scar and his master stood at the bus stop. The man asked why not to buy a car, in status not to drive by public transport. The guy got angry and shouted that the Scar does not think about that there is no need in the car, but both money, natural resources, environmental friendliness are saved, and that's all. They bought tickets and approached the bus, waiting for their turn to land. People have already begun to climb inside. It was the heat, and already in the first half an hour of the trip, Qin regretted his decision to say about the Scar. When they went out at the right stop, the vile bus finally left them a whole cloud of dust from under the wheels. There were several more of the same buses at the station, but now the young man did not even want to approach them. The Scar caught his breath and said that he was ready to personally pay for the car, to which Qin replied that he realized everything and he would buy a car. The hero continued to stand half-bent to recover, when he suddenly heard that someone called him. He looked in surprise at the girl in a red checkered skirt. After the trip, a head was dizzy and it was difficult to focus. The beauty came up and hit him on the shoulder, with the words that she thought she did not expect to meet Qin in such a place. It was the same classmate, Gong Yao, who always stood up for him. She said that she had come here in search of work. She was recently dismissed. Looking at the beauty, our hero said that you need to be a real idiot in order to fire such a girl. The classmate smiled coquettishly and admitted that the boss was a moron. After which she began the story. This is a long story. It worked in a good company for a long time, but one far from great day everything has changed. They transferred a new person to the team and made a leader. He complicated his life, preventing everyone from fulfilling direct duties and hanging additional tasks, so she could not cope. Chin yelled that it was necessary to immediately teach this reptile, but the classmate reassured him, explaining that it was not necessary. She said that she was not holding an ex-colleague of evil, as her sister opened the company in the city and hired her as an assistant. The guys once again clarified whether she was sure. The girl joyfully said that yes, by the way, she was a sister's car and could give them to. Sister Gun Yao looked gorgeous, but immediately appreciated the shoes from the market, a washed t-shirt and cheap trousers of our hero, calling it a beggar. A classmate explained that she studied with Chin-chan. He is a wonderful person and repeatedly helped her. Then a stranger leaned out of the car and asked if it was the famous Chin-chen, the future son of Mr. Su, about whom the whole city is hearing. The sister said that why the son-in-law of Mr. Su would go on the bus and buy things on the market, but still introduced her boyfriend Shabanina. She added that there are packages in the car. Let them use so as not to stain the interior. And even if they don't think about luring her talented sister to their side, Shannon apologized for the behavior of his girlfriend. He explained that today she has a difficult day. Usually she does not behave like that. In the restaurant where they came, Sister Gun Yao began to order everything in a row, for which Chin-chen asked to stop. They could not eat everything. The woman asked why she couldn't treat her friends with something worthwhile, and the guy had to apologize and thank Chin-chen Gel and thought that Gong Yao, fortunately, had much more pleasant character. Otherwise, they would not have agreed during their studies. The sister just invited the girl to sign an important contract, which should take place in a couple of hours as soon as Mr. Lee calls. Gun Yao was worried and said that unpleasant rumors were going on about this master, as if he were a pervert. The woman was angry and stated that she was faced with perverts more often than with cockroaches. It is time to learn how to fight back and will not be scary. Shannon laughed and said that he would not go to the meeting. The family of D was involved there, and he does not have too good relations with this clan. Hearing a familiar surname, Chin-chen asked permission to accompany them. The woman was a little surprised. Then our hero pretended that we are talking about Scars as a bodyguard. While such a strong man is nearby, no one will offend the girls. The woman thought and said that it would be better to be nearby if you need help. They will call or give some other signal. The office of the construction company Lee was located in one of two almost the same skyscrapers. The man with glasses once again read the contract and said that he had not yet made the final decision to cooperate with a small business. Then he gave the Gun Yao with a sticky look and asked what kind of new one, what her name is, and how much beauty is. The girl, stuttering a little with surprise and embarrassment, replied that she was 25. She completely did not understand what was the matter. Mr. Lee, with a vile smile, patted himself on his knees and invited her to sit down, discuss the terms of the agreement. The sister asked, was it really normal to behave like that, where it was seen so that contracts were signed, sitting on her knees? Mr. Lee got angry and began to hiss at her, so that she was silent. Such a girl was not supposed to open her mouth at a business meeting. With the words that doing business is a complicated thing, Mr. Lee grabbed Gun Yao's hand and pulled over himself. He told his sister that since she was not so reasonable, then let him take a walk, and he will discuss all the details with the Gun Yao alone. Fortunately, the woman was in force, and the woman, hiding the phone behind her back, immediately quietly called Chin-chan. The guys stood almost outside the door, and as soon as they heard a mobile phone signal, they prepared to enter. Smiling, our hero looked at the door and greeted Mr. Lee as respectfully as possible. The man in glasses cursed, and a little weakened his grip so that Gun Yao could breathe freely and would not scare those who entered. The guy introduced himself and held out his hand to say hello. The name of Chin-chen was familiar to Mr. Lee. Hands contacted, the man blurted out, "Was it not the idiot who stood in the way of Mr. D?" At that moment he shouted from wild, just hellish pain. Chin-chen did not weaken his grip and asked if Mr. Lee believes that fate itself brought them here. He was ready to agree with anything, just to eliminate unbearable pain. The guy let go of his hand and Lee began to thank and bow in courtesy, reporting that the hero is absolutely right. The young man praised him for smartness and added that he loves when people admit his mistakes, after which he reminded of the contract. As soon as he promised that they would print and bring the contract now, the girls began to convince Chin-chan to leave. Then they will cope themselves. A few minutes earlier, Mr. D was in his house from unbearable scabies and terrible pain. He did not stop screaming and calling the doctor. The doctor explained to his son that everything is in order with his father, and the tests and examinations are normal, medicine is powerless. Then he dawned on him that the terrible state of D could be caused by Chin-chan's actions, which the guy told his father about. He continued to itch and painfully wondered where the poor simpleton could appear such abilities. The young man insisted that there were no other reasons. It is necessary to accept, as a fact, this is the work of Chin-chan. The man no longer had the strength to endure, and he ordered to immediately go to the SU family. The owner was just about to drink water when he heard a prayer for help from behind the door. He turned his head in the direction of sound, but was silent. The doors swung open, and Mr. D collapsed to his knees, folding his hands in a pleading gesture, asking him to save him. The old man laughed and said that he could not help. The man continued to apologize and blame his tongue without bones. Mr. Su added that no one can help him bear the burden of perfect mistakes. He will not share Chin-chan. But all that can say that there is no guy in the city now. When asked where he was then, the owner of the house calmly replied that he went for healing herbs to a neighboring city. D swore and threw up his hands up, trying to cope with the pain, after which he shouted the guard that they were advanced immediately. The next few seconds, the man scratched intensely, and all those present politely pretended that they did not notice this. Just at that time, a message from Mr. Lee came to his phone that Chin-chen had in his office. The girls stood in the middle of the office, and the men were engaged in something at the table. More precisely, our hero was sitting and listening. Lee tried his best to lull the hero's vigilance, believing that when he arrives, DI, the guy to be not approved. The phone went into his pocket. He put the young man in his chair and fussed, offering either tea, then massage, then drink, contract. Apparently, he was not signed yet. Chin-chen was thinking for a while, doubting whether he could offer him at least something useful here. At that moment, the owner of the office clicked his fingers, and as if employees began to appear from under the ground. Several men in the same uniform held dishes with fruits, desserts baked by chicken and other delicacies in their hands. On the second click, the same men appeared with drinks, wine, cocktail, and even bamboo vodka. Two more, as if in the palace of the Indian Maharaja, began to fan the guy with fan. Lee asked the guest not to deny himself anything. Chin-chen had no choice but to accept the proposal. He took cookies from the tray and invited the girls to the table. The sisters were in no hurry to start food, although the servants immediately rushed to them. Both replied that they were not hungry. Mr. Lee constantly glanced at his watch, expecting that bodyguards would burst from a minute in the office and grab his guest. When the gatekeeper reported that Mr. Dean arrived, the man threw up with his hands with joy. His expression began to change rapidly. He coughed and instantly ended up on the opposite side of the table, as if someone else had just made a hero's neck. They began to break through the door and was already mentally represented where the guards of Mr. D would stand, and he himself. Lee could not restrain himself and began to yell at Chin-chung that he should not have appeared here at all, insulting his boss before that. The man continued to scream and foam. It seemed that he was about to choke his own saliva. His dirty tongue had already described in detail what would happen to the sisters. He yelled that if girls dream of signing a contract, then right now they are obliged to go to the sauna with him. The doors just opened into the office and Mr. D broke there. Lee tried to push a welcome speech, but no one listened to him. Mr. D handed Chin-chan a box and asked him to accept this gift. He was wrong. He was very guilty and tells. Then the man began to beg to forgive him. The guy nodded relaxedly and pointed to Lee, asking if he was a man's subordinate. Lee understood that he had lost sight of something. He immediately collapsed to his knees and began to apologize, promising to immediately sign the contract. The hero broke the contract and said that he had to be drawn up on more favorable conditions for him. Lee ordered the secretary and promised to sign everything. Then, Chin-chen smiled and announced that he agreed to help Mr. D. There is no reason not to do this. He put his fingers shrouded in cheese energy to Mr. D's forehead and said that he was hoping that this small lesson taught him something. At first, the man's forehead lit up. A headache and discomfort began to leave. Then the green glow sank to the jaw, neck and further through the body. Itching began to disappear. Now Mr. D did not want to scratch. He said that he feels just wonderful. Nothing else bothers him. The man's face was so happy and relaxed as ever before. D handed our hero several red boxes with gifts, and joyfully added that as soon as he returned home, he would send him other gifts. The man began to back to the door with the words that if the Master Chin does not have instructions to him, then he would probably go, When the doors closed, our hero exhaled noisily and said that he was very glad that everything had finally ended. Sister Gunyo approached him and said that she did not even suspect that the guy was capable of such. The hero grinned, that he did nothing special. The woman held out her hand and said that without him, they would not have been able to cope today. If something would be needed, let her turn at any time. Chin and the beauty shook his hands, and the young man replied that he simply returned the debt. Her sister helped him repeatedly. With a laugh, they agreed that there would be only one rule, not to omit the Gun Yao as an employee to himself. The guy said that he had nothing in his thoughts, which extremely upset his classmate. The woman suddenly thought about something and asked if Chin-chan's should be lifted somewhere, since it was over. The guy muttered that he came to the city in order to purchase medicinal plants and other ingredients. Chin asked who needed. After half an hour, Shanin talked about the fact that the security system at an auction with medicinal plants is cooler than at the airport. They arrived in the right place where the rarest and most valuable ingredients were sold, even better than in the capital. The young man asked where the hero got such an interest in medicine, and the guy replied that everything was thanks to his father. If not for him, he would never have started to do this. In turn, Chin asked why the girl forbade Shanina to buy something at an auction. He was embarrassed and explained that she did not really believe in traditional medicine, but most likely the reason was covered in something else. Finally, they came to the right address, and Shanin pointed to the building where it was necessary to get through. It looked quite spectacular. Chin muttered with admiration that this place was probably the best in the country. Up to 1,000 sellers and buyers at the same time? Then, everyone around shouted that Chu Shi-yun and Shanin literally pulled his eyes out with joy and surprise that he would see a celebrity. Since our hero did not know who he was, the guy began to accuse him of that he was from another planet, not otherwise. It was a singer who appeared on stage at the age of 18, and by 20 she had already gained worldwide fame. Our hero asked if people of her status really come to such places, to which he received an answer, that they have no choice if the high-quality ingredients are needed. But specifically, this girl was not too lucky, although she became a celebrity thanks to the incredible vocal. Her grandfather is inconspicuously ill. In fact, that's why they were forced to come for the potions for this auction and pay any price for the necessary herbs. Chin was afraid that because of this he could go home empty-handed. This was not part of his plans. They went into the hall and took the most profitable places, taking advantage of the fact that other bidders had not yet come. Several times the guard approached Chin-chan. The guy was not dressed properly. This was alerted by Chu Shi-yun, who was already sitting in the hall nearby. The first lot, the snow ginseng, brought from the western slope of Mount Bukan, was exposed with an initial price of 2 million. Shanin asked why the hero did not bet, and he replied that even the quality is good, but he needed something else. Both noticed that Chu Shi-yun also did not bet, and decided that there was still a lot of time until the end of the auction. The host of the auction began to represent the following lot. His face shone, as if he had dug up and brought the treasure with his own hand. It was a pearl, the root, which became the relic of one rural healer and stored in the family for a long time. The starting price of 10 million. There was a whisper in the hall that among those present there were no fools who were ready to dump such an amount by the spine. But our hero already realized that he should buy it. He sat and mentally prayed that no one would offer a large amount. Then he would not leave the auction empty-handed. The young man raised his sign with number 6, raising the bet, but did not have time to count the manager to 3, as it was killed. Singer Chu Shi-yun proposed 20 million for Ginseng, doubling the original rate. Chin began to be very nervous and angry. Shanin carefully asked if he needed this route. Instead of an answer, the guy jumped up and made a new bet, voicing the amount of 30 million per lot. It seems that some regarded this as a competition. The singer threw a quick look at the hero from under the dark glasses. A second later, her number with a number shot up, and a sonorous voice said that the new bet is 50 million. Chin called the price of 80 million, and everything around, including Shanina, whispered that the guy had lost his mind. Shu Yu-won was inwardly indignant, but outwardly did not show emotions that had overwhelmed her. It was necessary to act. The girl with a smile relied on the lot in the amount of 100 million. The hall buzzed like a swarm of disturbed bees. Shanina torn to shreds. He yelled that he did not understand the rich at all, how to dump such money for some kind of root, but he calmed down. As soon as our hero promised not to make more bets. Losing to the singer, she was determined to buy ginseng, so let him get to her. At this time, the same sonorous voice began to elate his grandfather. Ask him to wake up and call for help. The guard rushed to Chu Shi-yun. The old man fell off his chair, and his granddaughter asked their family doctor about the council. Mr. Zhang replied that he simply would not have time to cook medicine. The manager immediately received a credit card with a request to issue a deal as soon as possible. Maybe the purchased root will help. Qin Chen got up from his place with the words that this would not work. He headed for the old man and his granddaughter. The singer was already holding the purchased root in her hands. The guy grabbed her by the wrist and said that she should stop if she wanted her grandfather to survive. The girl pulled out her hand and reported that she had no time for disputes if something happens to her grandfather. She would not forgive herself. Then Dr. Zhang intervened and asked Qin Chen what exactly he meant. The man's face was friendly. Our hero began by fertilizing the dead tree pointless. Everyone knows this. In addition, he can offer a better option. The doctor carefully looked at him. His face expressed an open surprise. The man asked what this option was. At this time, Chu Si-yun reached for a ginseng and asked to stop trembling and starting to save the old man. Dr. Zhang again took the root and said that the young man should be trusted. There are no random people at the auction. The prices are very high. You should try what he offers. The girl moved dark glasses to the tip of the nose and carefully looked at our hero. To trust was a tempting offer. The singer once again cast a guy with a skeptical look and muttered that she was okay. Let him try. There are still no other options. She said that if Qin Chen saves her grandfather, she would thank him, as he wants. The guy replied that in this case he was hoping to get the root that she had just acquired. The singer looked at him in surprise and replied that if she could cure the old man, she would certainly receive ginseng. Shannon was a little scared and specified his comrade if there were problems. Our hero replied that he was confident in his abilities. He concentrating all his attention on inner strength. This was far from the first time the hero used it. Qin Chen introduced the elements of nature, herbs, and energy of life, and then tried to collect it at one point and convey to the old man. The golden dragon appeared to him and asked why the child came to him again. Last time he helped. But now everything is not so simple. The young man objected that everything was simple, because since he called the dragon, he could command and ask him to collect vitality. The ancient deity could destroy the insolent. But he liked the decisive heroes, because he did not. The dragon said that Qin Chen behaves exactly as boldly as his father, but he is no less strong. Therefore, he will receive the help that he asks for. In addition, as a reward for courage, the dragon promised the young man to reveal him another secret law of longevity, life forces, unity with nature, the energy of the north, high-quality materials, the strength of the bones. All this was collected and granted by the dragon to the weak old man in a wheelchair. And Qin Chen received knowledge that eternal life was necessary solely for the sake of himself, and not for the sake of others. The guy spread his hands, ending with a spell. And the singer's grandfather opened his eyes at that moment and came into consciousness. Both the doctor and the singer could not believe that this really happened. They had already reconciled with the fact that the old man almost never showed signs of life. Now a real miracle happened. Grandfather did not just come into consciousness, but as if he was filled with strength and vital energy, healthy in his eyes. Our hero closed his hands into the circle, completing his healing ritual, Chu Yun Junov, trying to find out how his grandfather feels. He looked very good. The beauty embraced the suddenly beautiful and full life of an elderly man. Now the tongue did not turn to call him an old man. The root in the flask changed the appearance, but this did not stop our hero. With a pleased look of Qin Chen told the singer that he now belongs to him. The girl laughed and replied that of course. Then she offered to treat the guy with dinner as gratitude. Our hero was modest. Besides, in love, he replied that he should not bother. He had a business meeting planned for the evening. Chu Si-yun smiled and said that in this case she would thank him the next time, and he will certainly be. Shannon began to reproach the young man for missing such a chance when he still had a chance to have dinner with the star. Qin Chen did not pay attention. He explained to the singer that his grandfather was not quite healthy. He would need medicines. They cannot be prepared in advance, so let them come to him twice a month. The girl willingly agreed, adding that this was not a problem. She only asked what the price of the medicine is. The young man decided not to hit the mud in his face and said that one pill would cost 20 million. When Chu Si-yun screamed in anger that it was too expensive, the guy shrugged and said that she might not come. He waved her hand and walked away. The girl stood in mixed feelings and muttered under her breath that she was misunderstood. Sitting into a car bought by Shram, Qin Chen literally rejoiced. Not only did he receive the right ingredient for free, but also acquired a new major buyer. The root changed its shape and began to spread a pleasant blue glow around him. The young man decided that it was left only to check whether his properties were good. The route cost his money. With his help, the hero finished the cleansing of Ki and began the construction of the foundation. In the joyful mood of the spirit, he entered the house of Su. In addition to the family, there were Mr. D and a strange man in a white suit. His hair was a rare purple shade. Dai struggled to be friendly, but with the advent of Chin-chan began to politely leave, saying that he had to go. He looked menacingly at our hero and wished him good luck. The guy was not at a loss, and in response promised all the best. When a man in a white suit passed by, their energy clashed for a second. It became clear that he was also working on Ki. Chin-chan felt that someone intends to inflict a mental blow to his temple, but he did not allow this to happen. The man's hand was blocked at the moment when it approached the shoulder of our hero. Then his palms flashed so quickly that it became incomprehensible who's where. A man with purple hair began to fall. He did not understand how this could happen and was a little confused. Our hero caught him outside the forearm, not allowing to completely through his nose on the floor, and asked to be careful. The floor is slippery. When the guests left, Chin-chen and Mr. Su sat on the terrace. The old man's physical condition continued to improve. He said that he was feeling excellent and simply happy with this. Then the man became serious and said that he feels like a new one, and decided to start a new life. Mr. Su informed the granddaughter and the hero that he was going to move. Both did not expect such news at all. The old man explained that he was glad to live such a long life. He wants to finish it near nature and old friends somewhere on the mountain in the forest, and plans to sell this house. Chin-chen, not believing in his luck, carefully asked if Su-van would live with him in the villa. The girl was indignant and noticed that the villa has a lot of free rooms, and if he liked the first floor, then she could well settle on the second. In the car, Mr. D asked a man in white about Chin-chen. He replied that his level was quite high. When asked if he could defeat him, the man laughed. It seemed that he was amused by some naivety of Mr. D. He explained that, most likely, Chin-chen is a sorcerer. And although many believe that it is impossible to defeat the sorcerer, this is not so. Since he is a master of martial arts, he is almost sure that he may well defeat the guy. So he will take up the task. The man in white arrogantly folded his hands and stated that the sorcerers were never a problem for him, if D had paid well. The customer looked at him with gratitude and suggested that Mr. Su leave the city. The violet-haired squinted his eyes and said that he would be fulfilled. The main thing is not to worry in vain. There were so many people to say goodbye to Mr. Su that it was not possible to see every face. But it was enough to see the two. The face of Su-van and Chin-chan, both were very worried and were upset. Grandfather in goodbye waved his hand. He said that it was these two that would become the future of the whole family. And tears appeared in front of the girl. The guy also barely restrained himself so as not to join her. After them, all the escorts began to cry after the car drove away. The screams that he visited here more often became very loud. Our hero carefully laid his hand on Su-van's shoulder and called her into the house. Standing on the side of the road was now pointless. When they turned around to leave, a crowd of men with burning eyes began to invite the girl to have fun with them. Since Mr. Su left, Chin-chen quite sharply asked to let them go and give way. But this was far from the last thing he said. The young man recalled that with the departure of grandfather, Su-van turned into the mistress of the house, business, and the head of the family. This should not be forgotten. The faces of men have not changed too much. Now distrust and neglect showed them. But it was not even smelled with respect. Curses and threats rained down on our hero. With what words he was not called, this should be stopped. Our hero was about to start acting when Su-van grabbed the heart and made some strange sound. The girl noticed that if they do not become tougher, a rotten society would simply devour them. But I don't want to fall into all these intrigues. In the house of the line, Lin outwardly everything was completely calm. Things went on as usual and did not portend trouble. The ex-wife of Chin-chan scrolling the news tape, Yang and studied the report over the past week. Both were in a good mood. Then the girl saw a message that the Su family was disrupting the city. More precisely, Mr. Su himself. This inspired her. Lin rushed to her lover's neck and reported this good news. The man decided that if so, they may well return to his business. They decided that since Chin-chan now has no support, it is necessary to start with him and destroy the bastard who drank so much blood. In addition, Jan stated that it was time to find out what Su-van is and how good it is as a manager of business. Then someone penetrated into their house without permission. Lin shouted that this was a private territory. It was not allowed to be outsiders on it. Men in black mantles, shrouded in a dramatic red glow, did not react to her indignation. A minute later, a man in dark glasses, similar to the sorcerer, applied the spell of black magic. He released a vast magic scorpion, or a monster, very similar, possibly Scolopendra in the direction of a pair. The power of the spell was very large. The couple bounced, trying to hide behind the sofa. The gloomy voice said that if they want to get rid of someone, it was necessary to completely absorb his body and mind. Lin shouted that there was no need to kill them. They crawled under the sofa, but the monster was approaching inexorably. The voice said that in order to achieve his goal should sometimes be on small victims. Meanwhile, Qin and Suvan arrived on their villa on a high mountain. Thanks to unity with nature, the house looked very pacifying. Our hero opened the car door and warned the girl to go out carefully, without hitting. He tried to be gallant. Then he felt someone else's energy and was alert. It seemed that a stranger attended the villa. Qin first thought that it seemed to him, but listening to his feelings, he realized that this was really so. Outsiders in the house. Then a Scar ran out towards him to meet him and began to scream that he did everything in his power, but only the owner could deal with the problem. The man told that a man had arrived in a white suit. He wanted to meet with Mr. Shin. Hearing that he was not there, broke into the house and stated that he would wait there. Since the Scar failed to stop the uninvited guest, the matter is serious. Qin told the assistant that everything was fine. He is well done, but let him wait on the street until the visitor leaves. The Scar was surprised, wandering his eyes, but readily nodded his head, showing that he realized the order. Suvan was wary and asked our hero what happened. The girl was a little scared. The guy explained that the man in white who came with Mr. D agreed to compete with him, and the hero completely forgot about it. Now he is probably extremely angry. The beauty exhaled with relief. She already thought something serious happened. Suvan ordered Qin to be polite and be sure to apologize to the visitor. The young man agreed that he had acted ugly and would do everything. They entered the hall. A stranger in a white suit was there. The owner of the house first apologized for making him wait. He looked very touching, folding his hands in a pleading gesture. Suvan dutifully lowered her gaze, showing that she was a little awkward for delivered troubles. The man smiled and replied that he should apologize for the fact that he had broken into the house. It seems that the conflict was exhausted. The girl went to her top, and Qin invited the guest to go to the living room with him. Chuckling that they are now quits, the man said that he was thirsty and asked the owner of the house to bring him a glass of water. The guy went to the refrigerator. Looking inside, the hero said that he could offer juice or tea, so he specified what exactly the guest wants. He replied that it did not matter and made an incredible jump to attack the guy from the back. It seemed that he simply grinds Qin head on the refrigerator door. At least the initial plan was just that. The attacker's hand did not reach the goal. At the last moment, our hero leaned below, noticing something at the bottom of the refrigerator. He puzzled in his hand, took a bank with beer, and muttered that he did not drink this. Apparently, he bought and set the Scar. Qin turned to the guest and said that he had more drinks than he expected. Let him choose himself. The warrior pretended that nothing had happened. Our hero held out beer and tea, saying that there is still juice and soda. He tried to be as friendly as possible. The man said that there would be tea, and he himself tried to understand why the attack did not work. It could not be that the guy was so successful that he simply bent down in time. Qin smiled joyfully, lifting a tower jar of tea and said that in this case he would go to the kitchen and boil water. The kettle was placed on the stove, and the young man began to measure the right amount of tea, preparing a neat harness. A man with purple hair was right there. He was preparing to deliver another blow to the back and really hoped that this time everything would succeed. With the thought that this time the kid was so lucky, he prepared to chop him with the edge of his palm in his neck. When the enemy's hand began movement, Qin leaned again. It seems that the guy had an incredible instinct. He said that the water boiled. At that moment, the enemy just brought down the entire power of his blow to the angle of the wall and howled in pain. The man collapsed onto the floor and grabbed his hand. The groan, Qin turned to him. In his hands, he held a tray of tea. The guy was surprised at why the guest was on the floor. With a slight smile, our hero asked a man in a white suit to be careful. You never know what. He began to slowly rise. He was beside himself with anger, but he could not decide whether it was another coincidence or the enemy did it on purpose. The man decided that Qin could not have such a force that in advance to predict his attacks and evade them. He prepared a dagger while the owner of the house, with a peaceful look, poured tea into cups and praised a new variety. With the thought that for the kid it will be an honor to die from his knife, the martial arts master brought a weapon to strike. Our hero stood up sharply. thoughtfully saying that he forgot to ask Mr. Su about what to do with indoor flowers. The weapon did not reach his goal, and the warrior fell again. He knocked on his forehead against the edge of the table and now sat, grabbing his head with one hand and the second by the cup of tea. The young man asked what was happening to the man. Maybe he knocked his head in the morning, which was behaving so strangely. The guest covered the bump on his forehead with his palm and thought that 3 times such a coincidence simply could not happen. It was necessary to escape until it was too late. At this time, the owner of the house reminded him of tea and handed the drink. His voice was affectionate, but he felt mockery. Chin thoughtfully added that good tea makes up for energy, and sometimes he could even heal wounds. The man looked at the hero with surprise and respect. He realized that he had a great reaction, and strength has many times exceeds his combat skill. The hero decided to clarify for what purpose the guest visited him. He replied that nothing was like that. He remembered urgent affairs and is now forced to leave. The man headed for the door, pondering that it was better not to deal with Chin-chan. It was necessary to convince Mr. D just to stay away from him. He almost reached the gate when he suddenly heard steps. The master of martial arts stopped. Our hero stood in front of him and with a smile asked why he was running away like a rat. Because he had 3 whole chances to kill the enemy. The guest replied that he was a master of martial arts, because in the battle with him the young man has no chance. The man began to be angry and said that the sorcerer to read the spell may need up to 5 minutes, during which time he had time to kill him. In some incredible way, Chin found himself behind the enemy behind him, and gently asked who told him that he was a sorcerer. The man realized that he would now follow the attack and was grouped. He was angry, but at the same time scared and earnest. His eyes widened widely. For a moment, the warrior thought that now it would be necessary to reflect the blow of special power. The guy attacked the jump, but his enemy managed to put up a protective unit, as the distance was reduced. Hand-to-hand combat began. The confrontation was not long. The martial arts master used fists, and our hero was open, and he was objectively stronger. The next second, the guest flew away a few meters ago. He could not even just stay on his feet. The floor slabs could not stand the attacks and went cracks. The man tried to rise, but he did not succeed. Our hero stood above him and looked at the enemy, saying that he was really negligible, since he could not kill him for 4 attempts. The guy suggested that Mr. Din had sent the killer. He admitted that it was so, began to beg not to kill him, because he simply executed the order. Chin told the guest that he would not kill him. He bowed gratefully, not believing that someone could be so generous. The young man ordered Mr. D to convey that he gave him a second chance only for Mr. Su, and did not advise repeating the attempt again. The man bowed once again and promised to exactly convey the words of the hero to his master. He was really grateful. Then Su Van went down from the 2nd floor and asked what was happening. Chin assured her that everything was in order and they had already finished. The guest took a part and said that he was leaving. The girl looked after him and thoughtfully said that this man was some kind of strange. Our hero agreed with her. On the villa of Mr. Dean, everything was as usual. The palm trees bloomed and smelled. Azure water splashed in the pool. The owner of the house was sitting on the couch with a cup of tea when the secretary brought him a phone and offered to accept a call. This was already a man familiar to us with purple hair, who recommended the owner not to contact Mr. Chin. This does not bode well. Dean yelled that this was some kind of mockery. He spent so much money on a warrior, and he did not achieve the necessary result. The man asked Dean to just believe if he did not leave the family of Su and Chin alone, all his loved ones would be at risk. This is the last chance to draw the right conclusions. Dean was so angry that he pushed the phone to hell. The secretary tried to catch him so that he would not break. But the attempt ended in failure. The man developed in half with anger and could not believe that he could not kill Chin. Besides, the kid began to threaten him. He had to find the administration on him. Then behind him, a figure appeared in a black hood and gloomily asked if a man really wants to gain strength. Mr. D began to look around, asking who was here. He was still angry, but now he was also scared. Someone in a black hood, similar to a criminal, said that he could help. The man was covered with drops of sweat with horror. At this time, in the house of Chin Hu, the flight was analyzed. The blonde gave instructions to the subjects, having familiarized himself with a weekly report, so loudly that the chandeliers were staggered. Then his phone rang. It was Yang, and who said that he was asked to pass the ginseng, and clarified when it would be convenient to discuss this. The big man did not feel the catch. He noticed that this would delight Mr. Chin and began to agree on a meeting. He added that the boss was rather picky, so he would ask to come to the meeting personally. Ian agreed to everything. Scolopendra wriggled around his neck. Having pushed the phone, Jan asked a man in a hood whether he coped well, luring Chin Chan. He only grunted. The man on his knees began to beg him to spare him, promising to give his wife and daughter in-law to the sorcerers, let them only save his life. The girls sat tied and hearing these words covered with cold later. Who would have thought that Yang was so cowardly? The sorcerer laughed and said that these two were just garbage, because he would not fulfill the request of a man. When I was finished with Jan, the warlock sat down near the women and informed them that if they want to survive, let them do what he would say. After some time, Qin Chen and Qin Hu climbed the steps of the house where the deceased caused them. Our hero was a little puzzled. The place was gloomy and even sinister. He once again clarified whether they would get ginseng here. Rising to the desired floor, the heroes stopped in the middle of a completely empty and dark room. Then a tall man with two servants appeared in front of them. He greeted and invited guests to feel at home. They handed over his nerves from the blonde, and he suddenly yelled that there was no stupid thing. Let them just give them a healing root. The man said that in addition to ginseng there was something more important, and made a gesture with his hands. The servants turned out to be succubi and rushed into the attack. Qin Hu fell back, sending all possible curses into the air, and our hero rushed towards the threat. The vile creatures put their teeth in languages in the hope of profiting with something tasty. But it wasn't there. With a cry to be dismissed, Qin Chen grabbed his wrist of the first servant with one hand, and the other did the same with the second, threw both high up and spun around him. The next moment, with all his might, he hit the Sukupsh on the floor. Both remained motionless. Their faces again became normal. The servants crouched with pain. Blood and noses poured blood. Our hero shook his hands and asked the man whether some more tricks in the sleeve were prepared for them. He clasped his hands, after which he in a calm voice said that they had not yet finished. He began to envelop the green dense fog. The stranger became invisible. Qin Hu scaredly asked the boss what to do now, because the enemy was not visible, because it is impossible to fight with him. The guy asked not to panic. He said that while you see your heart, finding the enemy is not so difficult at all. A second later, Chen already held the man by the throat, gradually increasing his grip. He could not understand how he was found so quickly. Our hero brought a fist to strike and asked. He didn't hear that sooner or later any patience came to an end. The man scaredly asked what to do now. What the guy called him a moron and waved even more. He pushed the enemy with all the dope. He flew back, listening to the explanation that he had just been called a moron. His ears should be cleaned better. The man broke the wall and stopped, only leaving his dent in his body in the next. The energy of ki, which our hero put into his powerful blow, began to gradually dissipate in the air. His opponent received such serious damage that for some time he could not speak. He only made gurgling sounds. Then he, like a pear, fell sideways to the floor, after which he finally stopped moving. Qin Chen came closer and disappointedly asked where the whole power of the sorcerer went. Then the guy heard strange sounds, somewhat reminiscent of moans and fuss with furniture. To understand where they are heard, it was difficult. The hero came to the aid of Qin Hu, who pointed to a simple wooden door in the wall and said that, it seemed, sounds from there. Qin Chen opened her and froze. He did not expect to see what was outside the door. His face changed his expression. There, associated with his mouth glued with tape, his ex-wife, Lin, was suspended to the ceiling. The blonde did not hide horror, and our hero wanted to ask what she was doing here. But she realized that a woman could not answer with her stacked mouth. He carefully peered the sticky tape and Lin began to beg to forgive and save her. In exchange, she was ready to do anything. The guy at first did not believe, saying that it was impossible to save her. But the woman swore to fulfill all his orders and firmly, which she said completely seriously. The ropes were untied and Qin Chen said that in this case it was time to get out of here. His fair-haired friend confirmed that Lin understood everything and helped Lin rise. He threw the woman on his shoulder and carried it like a carpet, and she continued to cry and repeat that there was nothing. Our heroes slowly made their way through the forest. Nearby, they found a small wooden house shrouded in the bluish glow of ki. There was nothing interesting there, and Qin Chen went on. But he did not leave a strange feeling that something was wrong here. Then he saw a man leaning his back against a tree and ordered everyone to stop. It was necessary to understand who it was. It turned out that this is someone from the guard. He was wounded, but recognized Mr. Keen and turned to him. Our hero leaned over a man and asked him not to spend strength on conversation. The wounds were quite serious, but the bodyguard would not become silent. He explained that he had come here to report that Miss Su was abducted. Chin-chan's heart almost jumped out of his chest. The guard could not report more details. He began to cry and blame himself for not being able to protect the girl. Our hero tried to focus and decide what to do in this situation. The abduction of his lover pushed to decisive action, but it was necessary not to grip. Just at this moment, the kidnapper brought a tied girl to a secret place, which was prepared specifically for this purpose. Since the beauty was silent and did not move, the kidnapper said that he did not intend to spend time so boring, after which he licked his knife. The girl did not answer again, measuring him with a contemptuous look. The villain said that this would not work. He hates to lose. He leaned toward the beauty and grabbed her by the chin, unequivocally hinting that if she agrees to cooperate, he would survive. He would not harm. The beauty asked what the promise means not to harm, and if he had the courage to hit her at least once. The kidnapper did not like the question, and he kicked Soo-van, as if demonstrating that he was quite decisive in his intentions. The girl fell from the blow, and he held out his hand to raise her almost by the hair, after which he said that this was only the beginning. The man said that he was not scared by either its origin or the connection of the family. He will simply receive money from the customer, buy a ticket, and no one will ever find it. With the words that she has 5 minutes to think about the cooperation of a certain kind, the kidnapper went out and slammed the door behind him. Soo-van lay on the floor and thought that they would most likely not be killed while her grandfather was alive. That means the main goal is someone else. She mentally asked Chin-cheng not to act impulsively. Our hero at that moment got into the car to Chin-hu and ordered him to take him to his villa on the mountain as soon as possible. The light was burning throughout the house. The whole guard stood outside. It was obvious that the words of the bodyguard were pure truth. Seeing that Mr. Chin came out of the approaching car, the men began to move in his direction. They practically fled, trying to tell the owner as soon as possible about what happened in the villa. Excuse me. The guards in tears were repented by the fact that they could not protect Miss Sue and asked for a quick death for themselves. The guy replied that first you need to find a girl, and they will discuss everything else later. The head of the guard wiped the tears and said that the kidnapper put Miss Sue in a black van. They called the cops, but they did not manage to do anything either. Chin-chen was beside himself with rage and menacingly asked where the scar is and why the bodyguards were needed, if they could not protect the lady. The man replied that Shrama had serious injuries and he was in the hospital. This was a little puzzled by our hero. Apparently, the kidnapper posed a really serious threat. Our hero gave orders to examine the nearest territory, as well as to look after Lin. He himself tried to find knowledge about a quick search for a person. In one of the dragon books, he found information about the prohibited technique of the gold thread involved on the blood. It is very dangerous for the practitioner, as it takes vitality. The guy decided that he does not care about his life. It was necessary to find out where Soo-van is located, so he decided to apply the forbidden spell. The hero squatted so as not to fall from the entire height of his height, and began to concentrate on the task. After that, he bit one of his fingers to get blood. Now there was nowhere to retreat. The guy raised his hand up and began to read the spell, mixed on the blood to find where his lover is. He extended his hand forward and a glow appeared there. From each drop of blood, it became increasingly similar to the image. It seemed that the whole world around Chin-chan became as black and white as the picture appeared in his palms. The young man carefully examined the depicted area and finally understood where it was. He wanted to give the command to the guard but could not. Something went wrong. The young man could not make a single sound and froze, clutching his lips tightly. His gaze was frightened. Soon it became clear why Chin-chan magic, from his mouth a whole fountain of his own blood. It seems that the spell asked for payment of services. Everyone rushed to ask if everything was in order with him. The guy wiped his sleeve and simply ordered to go to Mount Boyan. The kidnapper broke to Soo-van literally from his feet. He menacingly asked what the girl decided. The beauty lowered her eyes to the floor and said that she was ready to cooperate. The girl spoke barely audible. The villain laughed merrily and admitted that he had met a lot of women, but among them there was not a single one as Soo-van. She looked at him so that if the gaze could kill, the man would be in the next world instantly. The kidnapper took up the belt with the words that, since she decided so, then welcome. The trip would be long. Then from behind, the question rang out what he meant and a man squinted back with fright, asking who was here. It was Chin-chen. Behind his back there was a wall of flame. It was an anger of a young man who said that the scoundrel should be worried. Know what he is and what he was doing here. The man began to back and did not stop asking questions about how the guy appeared here and what he intends to do. Having received the first blow with his fist in the stomach, he stopped talking and only bulged his eyes at every subsequent. Then he bent in pain, and Chin-chen explained that for a bad act, he would have to pay his price. The attacker received a blow to the neck, and after that, he was not able to stay on his feet completely. He remained lying, imprinted on the floor, wide his arms wide. The anger of our hero had an awesome power. The young man crouched closer and took his hair, asking who sent the kidnapper. He exhaled from the last forces that it was Mr. D. This news surprised the hero. He gave Dai a chance, and he, instead of gratitude, ordered Miss Su to kidnap. The attacker cried and asked for mercy because he simply did a job for money. Besides, he did not harm the girl. Qin got angry even more and asked where she got abrasions on her face if he tells the truth. The kidnapper did not find what to answer. He realized that he had very little chance of survival. The guy held out his hand and took him by the throat, starting to lift it into the air. It was difficult to speak. But the kidnapper still asked for mercy and explained that he was wrong. Our hero grimaced in disgust and asked for what it was wrong. His fingers squeezed the enemy's throat even stronger. Now he could definitely not answer. With the words that it was too late, the young man completed the begun. After that, he opened the door and entered the room where Su Van was. The girl could not believe that he came to save her before the irreparable happened. She was frightened, but immediately asked if Qin the kidnapper killed. He could give a tip to the enemy. The guy replied that, of course, he did not kill. He simply broke the spine and now he would be disabled until the end of his days. He began to untie the girl, explaining that the man did so much bad during his life that this is still a low price for his misconduct. Qin hugged the beauty and began to ask for forgiveness for not being able to protect her. Was not nearby at the right moment. The girl hugged him in response and asked not to worry and not to reproach herself. She intact, and everything was in order. Nothing terrible happened, he managed. The guy looked straight into her eyes and promised with all his heart that nothing like that would never happen again. Su Van gently straightened his hair and said that there was no need to worry. She believes him. Everything will be fine. Despite all the horror experienced, the girl smiled and quite confidently showed her feelings for the hero. Both were exhausted to the extreme and decided that they should go home as soon as possible. On the villa in the mountains, the light continued to burn. It is obvious that the situation there remained tense and exciting. The Scar came from the hospital and was eager to help the owner. All the bodyguards were busy trying to keep him. You should have seen the joy of a man when he realized that there was no need to save anyone. The precious Miss Su and Qin returned to the villa themselves. The ambulance said that the girl is in perfect order, and the ointment that he prescribed will help from abrasions on her face. Young people were very pleased that there were no serious damage. They smiled and thanked the doctor. Then the Scar finalized, finally to the owner, and began to pray for forgiveness. He admitted that it was his fault, that Miss sucks. Qin began to help him rise and asked not to blame himself, but still, the guy was surprised how the enemy managed to defeat the martial arts master. Then Su Van remembered something and said that there were 2 abductors. For some reason she did not say about it before. Our hero asked who was the second one. The girl said that she had not seen the details since the man was in a black hood, and he was also a giant scolopendra. Scram said that scolopendra was bitten by him, after which he could not defend Miss Su as he was paralyzed. Qin thought deeply who could be with such a mysterious form of clothing and a pet. The first thing that occurred to him was a clan of the dark magicians Xuanminf, but it was still not clear why they were hunting for him. The hero told the guard and Miss Su that he needed to go somewhere. The Scar immediately shouted, but how he was. The guy asked the scam to take the full responsibility for the protection of the villa. If someone appears, it should be called immediately. Qin opened the car Qin Hu and thought that now everything else is not important. But later he would ask a friend about everything. At this time, Su Van called him. The young man turned around, trying to understand what she was trying to tell him. The girl literally squeezed out the words by syllables. She was very scared and said that there was someone here. She gently pointed out for the bushes that was behind our hero. He squinted in that direction, but was in no hurry to unfold. He continued the conversation with Qin Hu, as if it were unprecedented, but gradually advanced towards the indicated place. Finally, Qin launched his hand in the branches and tried to grab the one who was hiding there. With the words that it was time to show his face, he literally pulled out of the bushes Di Chao from the bushes. The guy almost cried and trembled. He was so scared. He was really weighed by several stimulating blows, after which they tied up and took him to the room to pierce the truth. He began the story with the fact that in the last Wednesday, when the mercenary failed to kill Qicheng, his father contacted some sorcerer. The guy was hiding in the next room and saw that the matter went not according to plan. The Warlocks put a curse on his father and abducted him. Di Chao lowered his eyes to the floor and said that now the sorcerers threaten him himself. forcing him to do what they are driving. He sobbed and explained that his task was to kill Chin-chan, but he came only because he had no other choice. Chin-Hu whispered to our hero in his ear that it would be nice to leave everything as it is. He will try to get into the gangster den. The guy refused. He could not understand why the warlocks to kill him and why they could not do it on their own. There were clearly inconsistencies. Then a stream of dark energy flickered in front of them, and the blonde shouted that it seemed to be sorcerers. Something was again shaking. Chin-chan ordered him to stay in place and look after the boy, and he promised to figure out everything and immediately return. Something small and disgusting, vaguely resembling a scolopendra, seemed in the mouth of Di Chao. Our hero from all legs set off to run into the thicket of the forest. It seems that it was there something strange and screams were heard. But before starting in pursuit, it was necessary to go out on the trail. Our hero used the internal energy of Ki and in a few seconds coped with this task. He found a sorcerer running away with his ex-wife on his shoulders. He was extremely pleased with himself because he believed that his undertaking was a success. But not everything was so simple. The guy was not a mistake, and soon it became obvious even to a criminal with a scorpion on the cheek. Chin-chan flew on him like a predatory bird, splashing the spray of water from under his feet, like wings. The eyes of a young man burned with a yellow light, which brought him on the trail of the sorcerer. Now the hero was preparing to attack. The man in horror realized that this is the same guy whom he had just written off from the bills. The criminal was extremely surprised. The hero attacked energy from a long distance, trying to stop the enemy and knock him down without letting him leave. He shouted the sorcerer after that he was moving too slowly. He could not cope even with such a burden with the speed spell in the arsenal. A giant hand from a yellow glow reached for a man, and very soon covered him like a parachute. The criminal screamed. He froze, realizing that he had no point in continuing movement. But Lin did not let go, continuing to hold in his arms. He had another trump card in stock. The ghosts observing the world appeared. Their face was terrible. It seemed that the dark matter dodged its worst image. The called spirits allowed a man, although little by little, but to continue his path along the water surface. The sorcerer turned to them and asked to accept his body as a whole. No matter what it means, his appearance was triumphant. Our hero held in his hand a magic sheet of Ki energy and noted that the captivity of the criminal is quite interesting. It was necessary to answer with dignity, and the guy began to read his spell, which was supposed to put an end to the fight. Chin-chan called 9 of the thunder of the sacred celestials. He at that moment looked powerful, like Zeus. Lightning struck directly in the warlock and he finally released the girl out of her hands. She flew to the side. The ex-wife of Ching-chan never came into consciousness because she began to fall, risking just drowning. This, fortunately, did not happen, because the confident hand of our hero grabbed her almost at the last moment. The guy enveloped his legs with a radiance of Ki, because he stood on the water as if on a hard surface. He was relieved to wipe the floor from his forehead and thought that this was saved. Perhaps there would be enough from him for today. With Lin in his arms, the young man returned to the villa. Light burned in the windows, but something strange happened on the territory. But Chin-chan was too exhausted to immediately notice this. He barely walked, and even carried his ex-wife on himself. The guy thought that even with his level of skill of battle the length of the whole night, this is a little overkill. As soon as he reached the gate, he began to call the guard and servant. But anyone, just to give the line and not carry it further on his own. The answer to his calls for help was absolute silence. Only now the young man was wary. First of all, he thought about Chin-Hu, whom he left for the main thing and ordered to call in case of danger. Neither Chin-Hu nor Di Chao was visible. The guards, led by Shrama, lay without consciousness near the cars. Our hero looked around and, appreciating the situation, rushed into the house. He was worried about Suvan and began to call her loudly. It was not easy to run up the steps with such a load on his shoulders. But the guy forgot about fatigue with horror. Chin-chan could not control himself. He was very worried and threatened that if something happens to Suvan, then he would not leave stone on the stone. Having broken into the house, the guy directly from the threshold began to call a girl by name loudly. It was simply impossible not to hear these cries, and yet she did not hear. Suvan was sleeping peacefully in her bed, so tight that her noise did not disturb her. When our hero appeared at the doorway of the bedroom, the beauty woke up and began to rub her eyes, asking in a sleepy voice when he returned. Only now the young man got rid of his ex-wife. Having freed his hands, he was eager to hug a lover. He rushed to Suvan and firmly pressed her to him. The girl still did not quite understand what was happening and where such an impulse of feelings from. Chin explained that Chin Hu and the son of Mr. D disappeared. Most of the guards, too, who remained unconscious. He was very worried about her. The beauty gently hugged him in response and began to repeat that everything was fine. He was just very tired and should rest. The young man confirmed that it was, hugging the girl slightly less firmly, but with more tenderness and passion. Our hero woke up in bed Suvan, but the place where the girl was sleeping was empty. He once again checked his hand, whether she was there, and only then opened his eyes. The aroma of food and Chin sat on the bed from the kitchen, realizing that it would be nice to eat. It smelled appetizing. Our hero went down the stairs to the first floor where the kitchen was. What he saw there was very nice. Suvan in a pink apron stirred vigorously some dish in a huge pan. The girl asked why he was not sleeping, because it was still so early. The hero explained that he had not yet settled all things, so he could not afford to sleep properly, after which he asked that she was preparing. The beauty was embarrassed and asked him not to look. The dish was not ready, besides too hot, but the guy was persistent. He nevertheless made his way forward and looked into the pan. There, apparently, there should have been noodles. But something went wrong and the food was more like porridge. Chin was happy to scoop food. Suvan screamed in a panic that she was not going to feed him at all. Soon, both were sitting at the table, as the girl, out of politeness, could not allow the guy to have breakfast alone. The beauty, embarrassed, said that she mixed up salt and sugar because the food turned out to be a little sweet. She could not eat her portion, grimacing with disgust, while Chin went for an addition. The girl once again said that he would not be offended if he refuses to eat, to which the hero replied that everything was fine. He likes. For the background, the young people turned on the TV and now both turned to the screen. The news reported that yesterday in the house of entrepreneur Di Juiju, a fire broke out. The announcer reported the two dead, the gentleman and his son were put on the wanted list. In addition, an entrepreneur Yang was found dead in his house and who was close to the DI family. The girl asked the hero with horror, "Was he really?" Chin violently pumped her head from side to side, exclaiming that, of course, there was no. Suvan folded her arms over her chest and asked who did it, and for what purpose it was possible to create this. The guy thoughtfully took his hand by the chin and was silent for several minutes, after which he answered that he did not know and could not even imagine. The goals of these two are clear. They wanted to take revenge on him, so they abducted Suvan and beat the scar. But what became impossible to say with them? Apparently, someone is standing behind all this. And here we should recall the sorcerer that Lin dragged. It is necessary to understand what the goal of a person who ordered and paid for a crime. If his goal is Chin, then why did they not harm the sleeping Suvan? The beauty asked how about her grandfather. The guy objected that the matter was most likely not in him. Lin said that perhaps a sister was involved. Both turned to the sound of her voice. They forgot that Chin-chan's ex-wife was also in the house. Lin explained that both of them were taken hostage, but as soon as the old man was seen by her sister, as everyone got out of control, the sorcerer began to laugh and shout that he did not believe that he found such a treasure. This is truly a body described in ancient legends. Yan replied that this was not a treasure, but simply a petty woman who is to the right and to the left of his money. Mr. D turned to the Warlock with the question when he plans to start. The man wanted to touch him, but at this time, Scolopendra jumped out and wrapped around the brush, rising higher and higher. Dai yelled. He fell in paralyzed, and the Warlock asked John, "And what kind of rush?" They don't understand how important this is a matter. The sorcerer folded his hands in the likeness of prayer and said that such a thing, such a treasure must certainly be hidden from prying eyes. He handed the man a telephone and said that while they were returning to the original plan, and then he asked to whom John planned to call, he replied that Chin Hu. The Warlock was inspired and said that if so, there was nothing to put off, you need to call immediately. On this, the girl finished her story, adding that Chin and Suvan already know what happened next. She added that according to the plan, the sorcerer had to abduct Suvan, but Yang and Mr. Dig are dead. They could not know about further actions, which led to the current situation. Our hero thought and said that he was not surprised that everything turned out so strange. Suvan asked Lin what she was going to do next. At a moment, the woman's face was overshadowed. Until now, she has not thought about it. And now, finally, she realized what the situation was in. She burst into tears and replied that her husband was dead, her sister was abducted, and the only person who could help save her is now offended and did not strive for this. She ended with a manipulative phrase that Chin-chan and Miss Su would have asked, at least put a monument on their grave. The guy got up from the couch and sighed. after which he said that he would help the girl, but not because he forgave her all the evil that she had inflicted him. His goal is to take care of the well-being of the Su family and save a friend, Chin-Hu. So let him not think that she received forgiveness. If she can save his sister, no, 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 Lin cried, closing her face with her hands, and replied that she realized, after which she began to thank the hero for his nobility. Su Van and Qin Chen looked at each other. They had not believed in everything that was related to his ex-wife for a long time. Then, an impudent voice was heard from the front doors, which reported that the Su family now lives in some kind of shed. Our hero turned to the entered and asked who he was. The guy who stood on the threshold of the room in which they talked did not answer anything for a few seconds, just stood with his hands in his pockets. Then he said that even if he was left without money, he would not want to live in such a cone. Maybe Su Van would allow his brother to remove something better for himself. Qin Chen froze, as if Doug. He had no idea that his lover had a brother. It is difficult to imagine how many more secrets the Su family has. The girl frowned and then asked Su Yu that he forgot here and why she behaves like that. He asked where her manners went and why not just call him a brother, to which the beauty objected that their connection was interrupted as soon as she left the capital. Su Van once again asked the question why he was here, and the guy replied that there were rumors that his grandfather took something important for the family when he left the city. Su Yu, with a threatening look, folded his arms over his chest and asked if his sister knew what it was and where it is. The girl got angry and replied that he would leave. He was not happy here, and what he does not know to her. The impudent smiled and noticed that it was true. It is unlikely that she had access to such things. The beauty said that if he does not leave the house immediately, she would call the police. Su Yu looked at her down and asked again if it seemed to him, or someone mentioned the law enforcement officers. Apparently, his dear sister in a small town was so dumbfounded that she completely forgot who he was. The guy looked into her eyes with an arrogant look and asked who would dare to arrest such an important person. He leaned toward the girl and whispered, which strongly recommends that she return the little thing. Otherwise, he does not vouch for himself. Su Yu wanted to grab his sister by the shoulder, but then his hand sharply threw back his fingers, charged by the energy of Qi. The young man looked puzzled at Qin Chen and asked who he was at all. Showing Su Van so that it does not interfere, our hero proudly straightened his shoulders and named his name. The girl's brother collected a supply of power to strike, hiding his hand behind her, and he tried to support the conversation, saying that he had never heard of this. Our hero did exactly the same thing, just without hiding. He considered it impolite. Thinking, he decided to attack first and enveloped his brush with a flame in order to inflict fiery damage to the enemy. The blow was very strong. Qin Chen put into him almost half of his internal energy of Qi. Brother Su Van was surprised. He did not expect to meet a master of this level in a provincial town. The first blow did not harm him. Qin Chen did not want to repeat the attack. If he decided to strengthen power, Su Van could suffer moreover. The enemy's level was so high that the probability of victory was only 50%. Su Yu seemed to read the thoughts of our hero and told him not to worry, since his blows are very well aimed. With these words, he quickly attacked. Qin Chen managed to put up the block, but it was too difficult to resist. He began to puff funny. This made the enemy laugh. He asked what the guy said, quickly being behind him and preparing a blow with the edge of his palm. At the last moment, the young man managed to turn around and substitute the elbow so that the enemy did not apply the neck on the neck as he planned. He counterattacked. But brother Su Van put exactly the same block with his elbow. It seems that his preparation was much better. Su Yu made a couple of movements with his hands shrouded in Qi, and our hero, unable to resist his feet, collapsed to the floor face down. Both girls rushed to him, and the enemy defiantly stood with his back, showing that Qin Chen was not even worthy of his gaze. The guy, without raising his head, asked Su Van not to come close to him. He apparently had a plan. The girl froze in place but said nothing, just nodding. She understood that in such situations it was better to do what they were saying. Qin Chen got up and called out to Su Yu, ordering him to go out and bring the battle to the logical finale. The enemy laughed and even applauded the hero, saying that his skills are very good. As for such a province, only there is a nuance. He saw such warriors, and noticed one detail, which he strongly recommends to take care of in the future. Our hero did not understand what it was about, but insisted that the affairs of Su Van, it is his business, because he is ready to protect the girl to the last drop of blood. The guy began to collect concentrated energy around him and stated that if the girl does not want something, then it would be so. No one could force her. Su Yu grunted. which finally understood what was the matter and began to slowly walk around the room, as if spreading his legs. He looked back at the young man and stated that he hates people who did not see their own potential and could not adequately evaluate him. Brother Suvan raised his finger to his lips, as if pondering his decision, and then invited our hero to conclude a deal. This was a little discouraged by Chin Chung. What deal can talk about in the current situation? Su Yu explained that, judging by his assessment, the internal spiritual improvement of the guy does not exceed the level of foundation formation now. The hero was even more surprised. Brother Su Van said that he gave him 2 years. If during this time Chin Chen will not reach more, then his sister will be taken away, and the guy himself will be erased into dust. The young man strangled heavily, but tried not to give a look, so he asked for some on his way he should agree to this. Then, he clarified what would happen if he is lucky and he can handle it, because this is also a condition of the agreement. Su Yu spread his hands and promised that in this case the hero would receive a chance to fight him in the most luxurious arena of the capital, regardless of the outcome, so he would become famous. The guy added that this would be a good impetus in his career, after which he held out his hand with the question if Chin Chen agreed. Our hero accepted the handshake and replied that such conditions are suitable for him. Therefore, yes, I agree. Su Yu turned around to leave, saying that in this case he would not stay, but finally wants to say something else. Su Van must convey to the old man that they need this little thing, because the next time he comes for her, let her do not expect good. Naturedness. The girl replied that the next time we would look. The brother ignored these words and told Chin Chan that in a fight with him he would have died. We need to train more, which our hero advised not to worry about it. An uninvited guest put on his hat and headed for the door, wishing everyone a good day and adding that they would soon meet again. Su Van and Chin Chin looked through the window how he gets into his expensive car and drives to the gate. Everyone thought about his own. Our hero was worried about the fact that with his connections and resources and on the outbones he was not suitable for this guy who became a bump in the capital. Su Van said that before leaving, his grandfather advised, in the event of problems that he could not cope, to contact his former student of Fan Jing Yao from the security department. The guy was delighted. If we are talking about security management, then they really will help. But why then the girl has such an expression, as if this is not a very good idea? Su Van explained that the connections in society are very important. Her grandfather and Mr. D helped Fan to break through to the top, due to the fact that the hero's last conflict is problematic to ask for help. Chin Chin said that this was not scary. They will resort to this option only if he cannot solve the problem himself. Then they knocked on the door. The heroes turned alarmed, trying to understand who else could come at such a moment. On the threshold stood 2 men in the form of a security department, who officially invited Su Van and Chin Chan to a banquet that Mr. Fan is satisfied. Our hero was surprised. Well, it was necessary as it coincided, and the girl realized that this is the same banquet that she completely forgot about. Men in the form replied that they were responsible only to transmit the message, but they strongly recommend that the couple not refuse the invitation. Young people looked at each other. Doubts were read in their views, but it was necessary to make a decision here and now. They replied that they would go to change and descend. The city shone with evening lights. The sight was incredibly beautiful. You cannot often look at the metropolis from a height. At the reception, it was crowded, and Su Van noted that there are many eminent guests. So the fans' affairs are going well. The status works for it. The guy asked to explain, and she added that the higher he climbed, the higher to fall. So let her not pay attention to people and try to have a good time. Then, from somewhere below, a thin voice was heard, which called Miss Su by name. The girl looked around to understand who she needed it. A little girl with 2 red tails rushed to hug the girl with the words that she was missing her. It was Xiao Di, the daughter of the organizer of the banquet Fan, who continued to babble something about long separation and the joy of the meeting. Then she felt Chin Chan's incomprehensible gaze and looked at him in response, asking who was it all. Without waiting for an answer, the baby called herself and said that she's shown at secular receptions even before his name became known at least someone, adding that the guy should be ashamed. Su Van laughed, noting that the character of Xiao Di did not change, but then the girl said that she knew who was in front of her. This is the same Chin Chen. She leaned toward the guy and said that she heard about his divorce. Maybe it was better to return to his sister Lin. The hero replied that this did not concern her. The girl screamed, "What else about?" Miss Su is so beautiful, smart, kind, and tender that she would not allow him to touch her honor. In Xiao Di, almost tears poured out of her eyes, and Su Van whispered, Chin-chan that she was still a child. He nodded and replied that he understood everything. The girl went into rage and pointed the guy with a finger that if he only dares to offend Miss Su, she would not leave a wet place from him. The baby stomped her feet, and our hero and his girlfriend thought that it turned out somehow embarrassed and too noisy. Then Xiao Di remembered something and turned to her friend with the words that she wanted to tell her something important. She took Miss Su a little to the side and in a whisper asked if she remembers a friend of her father, a man named Bi Xiaoyao. The girl nodded, and then the baby in a whisper added that this person was going to take revenge for Mr. D. Su Van was embarrassed. She did not expect that the girl was so aware of all the subcover intrigues. The girl pretended that the information did not worry her at all. Miss Su once again remembered the words of her grandfather that the only person you could rely on is Fan Qingyao. Now it seemed funny. She confidently answered the girl that it was outraged how such a man dared to touch Qin Chan. Then Mr. Fan arrived. He was the director of the department, graduated from the military academy, and set a record of physical indicators, which no one was able to beat. He was followed by Xiao Yao, and although our hero did not know anything yet, but he really did not like this man at first sight. The girl suggested saying to his father, but the guy did not. They are not used to this behavior here, and Xiao Yao gave the order to the guard to immediately bring Qin Chan to him. Mr. Fan did not allow the command to implement the team. The guards froze, waiting for the next order. They did not know what to do. Fan told Xiao Yao that the young man came to Miss Su, therefore should be more respectful, despite his personal hostility. Let him politely ask to come. Everyone around whispered that Xiao Yao was friends with Mr. D, and now he is going to a guy who, according to rumors, killed him. The man said that Mr. Fan arrived, after which he asked why Qin Chen did not come up to greet him. Our hero with a calm face asked why he had to do it at all. Xiao Yao did not restrain his anger and began to yell. Why the insignificance like him had no idea about the manners. Then Miss Su intervened and in a calm voice clarified whether she was heard that someone called the guy a nonsense. The man bowed and greeted her, but the girl continued to read to him that the owner of the house, Mr. Fan, and he personally invited her companion. He apologized, although he thought that as soon as he got rich, he would avenge this arrogant bitch from the Su family. Xiao Yao quickly picked himself up to Qin Chan with a message that Mr. Fan was inviting him to approach and say hello. The guy joyfully thanked, smiled again and replied that he was already coming. He would only finish the glass. The man looked at him with contempt. The hero seemed to him with some kind of peacock, inflating the feathers of the tail for eating spectacularity. He thought that the patronage of Su was not so strong, and soon the time would come when Qin Chan was pointed to his place. At this time, our hero had already welcomed Mr. Fan and thanked him for the invitation. He asked what he had to. The man, in the worship of him, laid his hand on his shoulder and said with a smile that he simply wanted to get to know each other, that's all. Squinting, the Fan explained that recently the name of the hero is on his ear, so he had been lain to be curiosity. At the words that he helped the work of the department, caught the villain, Qin Chen literally blossomed before his eyes. Then the man held out his hand and took our hero by the wrist. He looked at him inquiringly. He did not expect this. Fan Jingyao took the young man by the hand and invited the instructor to his department. Xiao Yao almost burst with anger, as you can call for such a work of some savage without education and manners. The guy with a surprised face replied that he was not interested in such activities, but not at all because of a lack of competence. At this time, Yao surrendered his nerves, and he yelled that he was enough to carry nonsense. If you do not know how, say, he would agree to recognize the merit of the guy only if he defeats him. Qin Chen asked if he would go to prison if he cripples the official. The man objected that Mr. Fan guarantees that this would not happen. 5 days later, they would meet in the ring. The young man replied that everything was fine, but he was not interested in working in the security department. Let him choose another bet. Xiao Yu replied that in this case, he would publicly apologize and would relate to the hero as an older brother if he wins. The guy was delighted and was ready to raise a glass for successfully discussing the terms of the agreement. But then Xiao Yao realized that the agreement was unilateral in nature and asked what he would receive in case of victory. Qin Chen did not slow down his glass but clung to a man's glass. Crystal rang beautifully. With a victorious look, the young man drank a glass to the bottom. It looked very impressive and pretentious. Putting empty dishes on the Qin Chen rack, confidently said that he would not lose. This was the end of their conversation. Xiao Yao continued to boil. As Chowdi said, the young man was very confident in their opinion, even arrogant. He was going to avenge his friend. Mr. Fan said that Bi Xiaoyao is one of the best fighters in the department. He managed to achieve the 9th level by only 25 years. The guy asked what this means and what was going on after the 9th level. The man explained that the construction of the foundation ends on this. The warrior and the earth and the water were subject to the warrior. The sky is also not scary for the master of the 9th level. He managed to conquer almost all the elements of nature. The man asked if the hero wants to say that his skills are enough to fight such a fighter. The guy replied, "That enough? A little lack of physical strength, but this is fixable." Fan was amazed and began to chat Qin-chan behind his cheeks with the words that he really likes him. A great future awaits the young man. Xiaodi reported that the guy should be happy that her dad liked her. The secretary came here and told the girl that the ticket for the concert she asked could not buy. She pounced on a poor employee with his fists and began to shout that it was unfair. Now she would not get to the performance of her beloved Chu Si-yun. Our hero smiled and said that it could well solve this problem if it stops making noise. The girl looked at him suspiciously and asked how he was going to crank it, because the singer from another province? Before Qin-chan had time to answer at least something, the baby grabbed Su-van by the arm and said that most likely the scoundrel was cheating on her with Chi-yun. The guy in fright raised his hands with the words that it was just cooperation, nothing more. He already realized that Su-van was jealous. The girl looked at him with a thoughtful look and asked what kind of cooperation it was talking about. Su-van pushed, trying to find out how exactly he met her and why she did not know anything. Coughing and not knowing how best to choose the words, Qin-chan began to explain what was the matter and how he met the singer. His girlfriend listened carefully and noticed that his abilities are ideal in order to make acquaintances. Fortunately, Xiaodi reminded of herself, who began to pull the guy by the sleeve and be interested in, as if at the ticket. The hero wanted to know how much she needed, and hearing that he was going to call Chu Si-yun right now. The girl turned out to be more smart and said that it would be better for Su-van to see the singer personally, so she would stop worrying. Qin-chan thanked the baby for the clue and said that it would do that, as he himself only had never occurred to him. In the luxurious mansion of Fan, there was a lot of interesting things, but at that moment our hero was the most interesting. Qin-chan sat in a new suit in a chair, clutching his head. The guy tried to think about how to behave and what to say at a meeting with the singer in the presence of Su-van. The girl drank tea with an impregnable look, elegantly throwing her foot on her foot. Xiaodi was also looking at. She had a meeting with the idol. Finally, the doors opened and a person in a mask, glasses, and a hat looked at them, asking whether Qin-chan is here. The guy realized with horror that Chu Si-yun had come, and now everything would begin. He never came up with anything suitable. The girl said that it was not easy to get here. Besides, the guard was strict and did not want to let her in. She took off her glasses and hat and complained that even her star face did not help how famous the owner of the house was. The girl stood her hands on her sides and said that her name is Fan Xiaodi, and the house belongs to her family. There is absolutely nothing to be afraid of here. The singer looked at her, thinking, then repeated the name several times, as if trying it tasted. Finally, Chu Si-yun said that she remembers the girl. She enters her fan club and wrote several cute and interesting letters, after which she thanked for warm words. To say that the baby almost died of joy is to say nothing. Hearts appeared in her eyes, and her own heart almost jumped out. The girl also began to thank the singer and tell how she likes that. The girl said that she was very glad to get to know each other. Then the beauty felt strange vibrations emanating from Su-van and became interested in why they react to her like that. The singer guessed that in front of her the girl Qin-chan and she was jealous. The young man realized that the show would begin now. Large drops of sweat rolled across his face, and his eyes began to slowly crawl out of the orbits. The case smelled of kerosene. Then the young man's gaze fell on a box of medicines for his grandfather Chu Si-yun, which he grabbed with him. It was salvation. He practically threw the pill of the singer with the words that let him take away and fail faster. They have a purely business relationship, and she decided to talk conversations here. The girl was offended. She transferred the concert to come to a meeting with the hero, and he doesn't even invite her. Qin-chan asked not to be personalized in order to avoid misunderstanding, came for the medicine, received it, so what else to linger, except to pay? Then the picture became clear enough, and Chi-yun finally realized what caused the rudeness of the hero. She looked down at his girlfriend and said that Miss Su, about which Qin-chan was talking so often, really beauty. And then she added that this does not mean anything, because she has talent and strength, which are much more important than just beauty. The guy explained that in the eyes of fans, she is the navel of the earth, and for him, there is simply a client buying medicines. for which comparisons are generally. Then the singer handed over the nerves and she, almost crying, said that the young man is really a villain. She wants to stop the conversation and leave. After that, Chu Si-yun threw a credit card on the table and turned around to leave. She was beside herself. Qin called her by name, and the girl instantly changed in her face, deciding that he would apologize and invite her to sit down. Instead, the young man pointed to Xiao Di and said that she really wants to be for a concert. Perhaps there would be a couple of tickets. Without turning face to those present, the singer hissed that she would ask her assistant to bring them tickets. Our hero waved her hand after her and wished him a happy journey. The girl slammed the door in a scale, showing that his wishes were inappropriate. The singer came out from the chic villa of the Fan family and got into her car, where the driver patiently waited. The car drove out of the gate, but a grave silence reigned in it. The driver did not dare to break the silence. Chu Si-yun, with a displeased look, gave an assistant order to send several tickets to the concert at this address. The singer began to rummage in her purse in search of the phone, thinking about how to defeat this Qin Chung. Then her hand felt for something interesting. A bottle appeared from the bowels of the Raidakul, somewhat reminiscent of a perfume. Chu Si-yun dawned that this is the right way. She began to pour over her spirits, remembering that the master promised that they would remain popular for 10 years. So why not use them for a guy? At this time, the sorcerer looked at the magic ball and saw there the singer uses the potion. He was delighted, because he did not think that the bottle would help him find the target. Behind the blueberry in the hood, the bound sister of the ex-wife of our hero was visible in the hood. Lin, the villain, promised himself that he would get a guy. He brought his fingers to his mouth, as if intending to gnaw his nails, in thought, but at the last moment he changed his mind. Sister Lin made surprised eyes. She did not expect that the main goal of her kidnapper was Qin Chen. The sorcerer clenched his fist and said that he has a plan. Exactly 3 days later, the enemy will cease to exist. 3 days later, there was a concert of Chu Si-yun, who so wanted to get to Mr. Fan's daughter. The girl did not drop from the glass. She first listened to the performance from the box. Qin Chen and Su Van did not share her delight. The atmosphere was lost from such places. But they were glad that they were able to deliver so much joy to the baby, who asked the hero more often to make useful calls. The girl turned out to be very generous and gave them about 20 tickets. It was surprisingly pleasant to be the VIP Gostums. Our hero could not understand where a sense of panic found him. But with every minute it grew at a concert. At this time, a sad melody sounded and a song began about winter. Xiao Di literally stuck to the glass. The show was very beautiful. The music was not inferior. The singer also looked stunning and sang no worse. It became clear why she gained such popularity. The baby burst into tears. It was the most beautiful that she saw and heard in life. Qin Chen agreed that it was really beautiful. The girl sang about how white feathers, gently swaying, swim in the night wind. Drifting, it was about snow. But each listener presented his own image. Our hero suddenly thought that even when he would break off all the ties with his family, he would depend on the Su family. Tears poured out of his eyes by themselves. Why a bird in a cage of wings? Su Van envied people who could express feelings through creativity while she was in the shadow of the family all her life. The girl also cried. Baby Fan was also in tears. She began to call her mother and ask her to return to them as soon as possible. Then the guy realized that something was wrong with the song. Something was wrong with the atmosphere. You need to find out who is behind it immediately. The hero applied special vision using Ki and saw that a red energy line departed from the singer. He realized what he had found, because he shouted Su Van and his girlfriend that he would come out for a short while and will return soon. Let them be careful. Realizing that both were crying and no one hears him, Qin Chen simply headed for the door from the box. In the corridor, it was deserted, and it was difficult to find an energy trace again. It seemed that he could lead to any door. Then female hands began to flicker around the guy, and a pleasant voice asked why Mr. Chen was looking for her. The girl in red with purple hair materialized from nowhere and licked the guy in the neck behind her ear. He reacted instantly, using a power energy blow with a large destructive area, throwing a stranger away from himself. He threatened her with the fact that if he does not take off his witchcraft spell within 5 seconds, he would regret it very much. The girl was surprised to notice that even great masters could not resist her spell. It seems that what the elder said about the hero, really. Qin Chen realized that she was out of Xuanminf and asked why they sent her here. The witch replied that he misunderstood her, and she was not here by decree of the elder. The girl explained that during the practices, the warlocks use human energy, so she came to the concert to practice. The guy enveloped his fist of ki and prepared to deliver a powerful blow. His fist stopped a centimeter from the witch's nose. He said that if she tells the truth, he would receive a chance to stay alive. If she continues to lie, let him blame himself. The sorceress admitted that under the guise of a potion of popularity, she sold to the singer perfumes, absorbing energy. Usually everything is fine, but today the stream is more than the same. The girl sprayed a lot. She added that the potion works only when the girl sings. It does not harm her in any way. Then, the hero suggested the sorcerer to use it on himself. She explained that she was not very good, but suggested in return for her life to tell where the elder is and how to find him. Qinchin thought that this option was not so bad. The information would definitely not be superfluous, because he agreed. At the foot of the northern slope of Mount Linlin, you should become a back to a wooden box and pass 12 steps to the right. Then, a secret passage will become noticeable. The hero immediately went to the indicated place. The sorceress promised to look after him from the mountain. The cave was actually quickly found. The guy was thinking about going there or not. The girl could tell the truth and could lure him into some kind of trap. As soon as he went inside, the entrance closed a piece of cliff. It seems that the information was only half. The hero decided that since it should be moved forward, at the same time finds out whether there is something interesting in the cave. After a dozen meters, he found boxes littered with green healing pills. It was a real treasure. The guy took a handful and decided that their quality is so-so. You need to try a couple to know whether to take the found or leave it. He decided to start with 5 and sat in a pose, convenient for spiritual growth and construction of the foundation of ki. The level of vitality from the pills grew, but not significantly to make a breakthrough and reach the ring against Xiao Yao on an equal footing. We needed a dozen pills and maybe 100. The hero appreciated the stocks of the elder and decided that it was enough to achieve his goal. The coincidence was very successful. He held out his hand to the next portion of pilule and suddenly decided to eat them all in order to certainly achieve the desired effect. Snow began to fly over Mount Linlin. Large snowflakes circled, spreading a pleasant yellow glow. The sorceress caught one on her finger, but she did not melt. The girl realized that some interesting magical process was happening in the cave. She remembered the words of the ancients that the snow introducing into nirvana would become a guide to the best future. It seems that Qin Chen reached the spiritual growth of the highest results in his practices. The great golden dragon again descended to the guy, whose glow was warm and pleasant, while the hero of the hero had a blue hue. The dragon praised his child, saying that they had not seen each other for only a couple of days, and the progress of the young man was simply huge. He suggested teaching him a nameless blow. Qin Chen asked that this was a fighting equipment or something else. The dragon replied that this was his personal creation that exceeds all the martial arts of people. The guy quickly mastered the skills. Now he had an unprecedented force and gathered a powerful energy into a fist. Behind him was a bound sister Lin. The girl began to make sounds to attract the attention of the hero. He turned around with a displeased look, snapping that he was busy and should not interfere with him. But when he saw that this was the bound line of Qin Si, the guy's voice warmed up. He did not expect that he would find a girl here. The hero took the gag from the girl from her mouth, began to untie the ropes. She asked to hurry. The elder would come soon. Qin Chen said that this did not scare him. But where is Qin Hu hiding? The girl recalled that the elder called the healthy blonde useless, so he was sent to another place. The young man sighed and promised to pull his wife's sister out of the trouble. Only let not interfere and does not get down under his feet. To get out of the now-walled cave, our hero decided to use the new equipment received from the dragon. The blow was so powerful that ki energy lit all the meters around the mountain. The sorceress was surprised by the effort of the guy. The stones crashed into dust. The fragments of the rocks scattered far. In the clubs of dust, there were 2 figures. Our hero looked at his shining fist and decided that the next time this technique should be more careful. With the words that the slope of the mountain is about to fall on, he explained the line of Qin Si that they needed to leave here as soon as possible. The elder felt underground shocks. He was discouraged that something incomprehensible was happening right in front of the ritual. The stones rained down in hail, the mountain collapsed. Falling asleep with stones, the sorcerer in sobs fell to the ground, crushing about his lost pills. He immediately guessed that this was the work of Qin Chan's hands. The criminal was determined to take revenge on the young man. At this time, Su Van and the daughter of Mr. Fan were sitting in the bed. The girl began to worry, where the hero was stuck. The girl suggested that Qin Chung twisted his stomach, but the heroine understood that the reason was clearly more serious. Just at that moment, the guy burst into the box with some blonde on his shoulder. On both, there were abrasions and bruises. Xiaodi yelled that he killed a man. The young man asked Suvan as soon as possible to call an ambulance. The girl dies. The beauty agreed with a stuttering voice and took the phone from her purse. Qin Chung promised to explain everything a little later. The guy doubted that the line of Qin Si would live to see the doctors, so he decided to try to apply his own healing abilities. The sister Lin still got to the hospital. The next day, she felt rather tolerably. A sister came to visit her. She was happy and could not believe that her ex-husband still fulfilled his promise. Suvan asked Qin Chan whether the sisters could be considered the rescue of the issue, to the question of which the hero replied that he still could find Qin Hu. Then steps were heard along the corridor. It was somewhat battered by Chu Shi-yun, who reported that she had heard about what had happened and arrived. The guy said that he was fine but asked to speak a little quieter because they are in the hospital. Then he became serious and said that the singer had come just in time, after which he asked her bottle with spirits. The girl began to get nervous and replied that she knew nothing to know about any spirits. Why suddenly such requests? The hero explained that if he does not want to die, he should get rid of them. Everything has his own price, and success also has it. Chu Si-yun cried and said that she was rarely using the potion. If that day he had not angry it, she would not have remembered perfume. The singer handed the bottle of spirits to the young man, although it was clear how much he did not want to do this. The guy applied the spell of manifestations of essence, and immediately around the spirits the purple ominous haze began to creep around. Both girls trembled. Chu Si-yun in fright asked what was happening and what was the thing. The guy replied that it was a ghost. Qin Chen explained that the ghost gives you good luck, but absorbs spiritual power and takes away years of life. The girl cried. She could not believe that she really constantly carried this damn thing with her, and sometimes even used it. Then, from somewhere above, an ominous voice rang out, asking not to call the potion a damn thing, or she forgot who owes everything that she had achieved. The singer continued to tremble with fear, and watched how the spirit slowly approaches her, hanging almost above her head. Qin Chen did not think for long, but simply grabbed him with his hand, saying that she had achieved everything herself, and the spirit was simply a parasite that burned energy. The demon said that if the hero is so smart, then let him go. But received a refusal. Everyone should get deservedly. The guy squeezed his hand and destroyed the spirit with the help of his inner power. Before his death, he managed to sow that he would still regret it. Qin Chen turned the demon into a rainworm. Now he will definitely not be able to fulfill his threats. After that, he said that the case was done, and now the singer could calmly go home. Nothing more threatens her. The girl began to thank him for the salvation, for not leaving in trouble, and much more. She really experienced great relief. The guy interrupted her and said that he would no longer fulfill her requests. In addition, this time he would make an invoice for his services when he arrives home. Let him not forget to pay him. The beauty yelled that all that he was thinking about was money. She turned around angrily and went to the exit, clenching her fists. She repeated with tears in her voice that only money was worried. This world is extremely cruel and mercantile. But then her face changed and instantly became calm and frightened. The girl fell silent. In front of Chu Si-yun stood two men in hats and dark glasses. It was clear that she had already had business with them earlier. The strangers approached the hero and asked what his name was, after which they informed Qin Chan that they were from the Feng family. The master expects a tea nearby. The young man replied that he had never heard about Feng's family. Besides, he had too much things to spend time in vain. Then one of the men showed the phone. On the screen was Qin Hu. A stranger said that this is concerned with this person. The big man was beaten so that there was no place on it, because it could only be recognized by voice. Qin Chen and Su Van were in alarm at the perennial video, after which they agreed to be turned on. Qin Hu said in a broken voice that he was in order. It was not necessary to save him and in no case should not come there. After these words, he received a blow in the face. The guy yelled that no one dares to treat his friend like that, to which the strangers answered that he could discuss the details with their master. The young man did not think for a long time. He was furious. Therefore, he said in a decisive voice that he would go. When they entered the necessary tea, a man in a hat reported to the owner that Qin Chen had arrived. He poured a drink from a sea pacious into a cup and invited our hero to sit down at the table, making him a company. A man with long dark hair said that he had heard about Qin Chan's successes. Especially struck him how he defeated the elder. The stranger put a gold credit card on the table and moved towards the hero, asking to take it. When asked why, he asked to stop portraying a fool. It should be returned to what he took. It belongs to the Feng family. In return, he will return his friend. Qin Cheng replied that he was not concerned about the money. In addition, he did not take anything like that which could be of interest. The man asked what would happen if they began to torture Qin Hu, and then he would die with a slow and painful death. The hero replied that he was useless to threaten him, because he really does not understand what it is about. The conversation does not make sense. In addition, now he knows who abducted Qin Hu. If so, he will make every effort to save him. The man began to get up and said that our hero was in vain ignored his good intentions. Qin Chen was already heading for the exit. As the orders sounded to prevent him from leaving, the men in the hats blocked the path. Our hero asked that he really applied the new dragon technique on this. The effect was powerful, as expected. The man managed to stay on his feet, but he was padded. He asked to return the pills. This is the result of his family for several years. The young man remembered the beautiful green pills that he ate. Even his conscience began to torment him a little. The hero glanced at the stranger and thought that it was inconveniently came out. But he did not know that the pills belonged to the Feng family, and he could not give out what was no longer. He once again stated that let him believe or not, but he did not take anything, respectively, and could not return anything. The stranger squeezed his lips tightly. It was clear that he hesitates and could not decide what to do next. In the meantime, Qin Chen simply got up and left. One of the men in hats with his last strength asked the master what to do, to pursue him or not. The man was silent for a while and then yelled in anger that let them immediately bring that guy to him. Our hero walked along the street and was thinking that the Feng family was definitely connected with the Blankniki sect, so he should hurry to save Qin Hu. He grabbed with him Chen Feng, deciding to use spiritual practices on him. There would be a lot of energy, but it was worth trying. The hero mentally asked Qin Hu to hold out a little more, and then he saw him. The image was foggy. Two strangers went to prison, where they kept the prisoner. The bodyguard was not only beaten, but also given to eating magic worms. He caused pity even among enemies. Then behind his back the question was heard who they had thought to regret it here. Qin Hu will be all good, but they definitely do not. After a couple of seconds, the guards in an unconscious state lay on the floor, and our hero went into the room where his friend was holding. What he saw wounded Qin Chan to the core, and he asked for forgiveness for coming so late. The guy used his energy chi to convey a little of his strength and bring him to his senses. The man woke up. He began to slowly rise with a groan and opened his eyes. His gaze was complete pain. The big man said that he asked not to come, but our hero asked not to spend his strength to talk. The damage is too serious. The hero took his friend on his shoulders and asked to try to go. It was necessary to take him to the hospital as soon as possible. Qin Hu tried to say something. All that managed to make out was a request to leave him and escape. The danger is nearby. While Qin Chen tried to find out whether he had in mind someone from the Feng family or the elder, the room was filled with purple glow. It was an elder who said that the hero was very good, once he managed to conduct him. But this would not happen again. The guy looked at him and said that he immediately understood. In front of him, the clone did not think that the great elder was using such dirty tricks. The sorcerer laughed that he has been using this body for decades, but the hero is the only one who noticed. However, he had nothing to worry about. Today, he came with a proposal for cooperation. Qin Chen pointed to his barely living friend and asked if his manner of cooperation looked so. The elder spread his hands and said that it was just a bug. His fate should not worry anyone. He continued that after the guy destroyed his reserves, there is no hope for a breakthrough. But maybe he will help to get one thing for him. The sorcerer explained that dragons live in the sky, in the sea of snakes. On the ground are tigers, but only the heavenly dragon is able to make the sun extinguish the eternal. People have always sought to kill the dragon, to make armor, weapons from teeth and bones, magical pills from the blood. He finished that he heard that the Su family was hiding a real dragon, and he asks the hero to get him for his black purposes. The guy from Surprise did not know what to say. Laughter began to strangle him, but at first he tried not to laugh. Finally, patience burst, and Qin Chen laughed so deafening that stone walls trembled. The elder asked what was ridiculous, to which the hero answered, wiping his tears, that this was the funniest joke that he had ever heard. Then he showed his true appearance and asked, "Except what the sorcerer is looking for is not here in this room." The warlock also laughed and said in joy that it would be even easier to achieve what was desired. He rushed to the guy on the attack, menacingly saying that he would meet with death now, so let him accept it with dignity. The young man took advantage of the advice and instantly found himself behind him, not allowing him to strike, but with dignity organizing his own attack. Our hero crushed the elder with the blow of a fist, shrouded in the energy of Ki. This was enough. The dead body spread on the floor, but the sinister voice on top asked that the sense of the clone was killed. On the ground, there are still billions of suitable bodies. The evil spirit ended the fact that from today, their enmity with Chin-chan reached a new level, after which the purple smoke scattered. The hero helped a friend get up and get to the door. When asked what it was, replied that he would know a lot, he would grow old soon. Chin-hu smiled and began to thank the guy, to which he replied that he needed to say thanks. In the hospital, Chin-chan had to explain to the policemen and doctors for quite some time that it wasn't he beat his friend. Now his head was simply split in pain. He was relieved to think that it was finished with business. Now you can fully concentrate on a duel with Xiao Yao. Then our hero remembered his girlfriend and thought what she could do now. Because of the tree, Tu watched Chin-chan. The student asked the master when he plans to attack. The old man just read a spell from the leaf and solemnly announced that this would happen right now. The street along which the young man was walking and all the surrounding buildings were enveloped by a lilac haze with a pinkish glow. The guy immediately felt magical energy and was alert, starting to look around. Then right behind him, a black disgusting hand appeared behind his portal, and everything else was about to appear. With a cry that Chin-chan must die, the dark sorcerer prepared to inflict the most vile blow to his back. The hero was ready for this, and enveloped himself with a dense protective radiance of the dragon energy. Without turning, he replied that if the enemy stops right now, he would generously save his life. The old man laughed, as a boy could only threaten him to threaten him. He explained that he dragged the hero into a formation called the Fastening of Hearts. He is invincible in this territory. At first, the young man was a little scared, but applying special vision, he quickly realized that he would cope. It was a basic magical formation, no more. And although the old man was strong in it, but by no means omnipotent, the warlock froze, seeing in front of him something that could not exist there. It seems that Chin-chan was much stronger than he expected. The guy called his dragon and stood with his hands on his chest, after which he said that if the sorcerer saw enough, they could start. The muzzle of the fiery dragon began to approach the warlock. He screamed with fear and did not even try to defend himself, at least somehow. They both moved from the formation back to the city, and the old man began to ask for mercy, as well as asking who Chin-chan really is the dragon from him. The guy left the answers and asked who sent him. This would facilitate his revenge. The sorcerer decided that he should still try and put around the blocks so that the hero could not get out. Seeing the magic, Chin-chan noticed with interest that he had not met this before, after which he asked the enemy what kind of magician he was. The old man entered into a rage and said that he did not want to spend strength on such insignificance. The fighting forces could not be compared with magical arts. The guy was calm and asked why he decided that his specialization in martial arts was a little more complicated. Chin-chan raised his fingers and said that magic for him, ordinary tricks, appeared the brightest flash of light and the blocks disappeared. The sorcerer was frightened and ordered to stop, but he needed a break only then to hide the next spell. He rushed into attack with the words that he did not believe that the kid would be able to overcome him. The speed was really impressive, but our hero already knew how to fix it. He used his crown 2 fingers, shrouded in Ki, touching them to the enemy's forehead. Chin-chan explained that he was very tired. Besides, he has no time for the old man. Let him just say who sent him and leaves him. The sorcerer drooped, his muscles relaxed, and his voice was trembling. He replied that he had sent him by Bi Yao. The guy turned and went, thanking, but advised to prepare for the mission the next time more diligently. The old man called out to him and said that in gratitude for his life he wanted to give advice to the young man. He should not underestimate Xiao Yao. He is capable of everything in order to achieve the goal. Chin-chan accepted the information for note and continued his way around the city. He had something to think about. At this time, in the training room, one of the subordinates told Xiao Yao that the old man had failed. The man was furious with a boxing pair so that she almost scattered into pieces, after which he cursed. Bai Xiao Yao ordered to assemble everyone who is possible. He was going to destroy the bastard at the whole city with his own hands. Before the fight, Su Van helped Chin-chan with a suit, and Xiao Di asked if he was very worried. The hero replied that he had no reason for concern, to which the girl said that self-confidence is good, but the consequences may be sad. The guy asked what she could advise him, to which the baby replied that she could ask her father and there would be no duel. Su Van and Chin-chan laughed, which plunged Xiao Di into real rage. She could not understand what was ridiculous here. The guy said that it was a very good joke, and the girl continued to be angry. Now she was not at all sorry, The girl carefully asked the hero why he accepted the challenge. The reason was to take an anger. Or there is something else. The guy nodded. Qin explained that he was going to get out of people in the capital, and the victory over Xiaoyao can serve this good service. He is not the last person in the country. Miss Su laughed that guy was arrogant enough if he found out that they want to use him like a springboard in his career. Would burst with anger. There was little time left. Qin went to the arena, saying that he would return very soon. The enemy was waiting for him in the ring, and although the hero was late for only a minute, he accused him of non-launched. The guy pretended to shake off dust from the sleeve and said that it was better to be late than to use dirty methods, like some. The enemy said that this was not related to the battle, to which Qin objected, that there is opposition to any action. Everything is interconnected. Xiaoyao enveloped himself with a blue glow of qi and said that only the winner would say the right to speak, and therefore enough to talk. He made a jump, intending to deliver a powerful blow with his foot. Our hero calmly stood still, not trying to evade. The stands began to support their longtime favorite, loudly chanting that Qin had come to an end. Xiaoda began to worry and said, "Suvan, that was all over." But the girl replied that she believes in the forces of the hero. He continued to stand motionless, even when the enemy's leg had already reached his head. From the outside, it looked frightening. But then an explosion was heard and everything enveloped the smoke. Xiaoyao flew away a few meters ago. No one expected such a development. He rushed into a new attack, thinking that the enemy really got an interesting one, but did not intend to tender with him. The stands froze in tension. From clubs of dust, smoke, and radiance, sounds similar to breaking bones came. The baby rushed in tears to Miss Su, and she sighed, which Qin thought about, agreeing to the duel. Xiaoyao again attacked with a cry that it would be revenge for his humiliation 5 days ago and for his friend Di Chao. Qin simply took his hand in his right during the blow. The effect of this simple movement was stunning. The bones were cracked. Xiaoyao grimaced in pain. It was a proprietary technique of the hero, not otherwise, but the enemy did not know that this was only the beginning. He whispered that this was impossible. Our hero asked what exactly was impossible. He asked to simply admit that people exist better than him, preparing a dragon's blow. Xiaoyao realized that he could not only lose, but also die. So he began to beg for mercy. Qin did not listen to him. With the technique donated by the dragon, he carried out a blow of such power that the enemy threw it high, and then simply imprinted on the floor. In the same way, the majority of the audience in the front rows, rising, were too scattered. Men asked each other what happened. Xiaodi joyfully cried out that it seemed that Qin won. Su Van replied that she had not even doubted that it would end just that way. Then some unfamiliar man entered the ring, saying that this place was surprisingly difficult to find because he was late. Our hero asked who he was, to which the man enveloped himself with a black witching stream, and replied that he was the one who would kill him. Qin noticed his resemblance to a long-haired sectarian from the Feng family. Apparently, this was his brother. He replied that if the case is in pills, then he is in a hurry to disappoint. He does not have them, and therefore there is simply nothing to give. The enemy said that his name is Feng Lin, and he would force the guy to pray for mercy if he does not give the stolen, while he is still alive only because of respect for Mr. Seuss. Our hero replied that too often he hears similar threats recently, to which the opponent noticed that in this case he would apologize to the head of the Su family. Young people stood in the arena opposite each other. One of them enveloped the flow of the yellow radiance of the dragon. The second is some kind of black and red energy. The audience began to scatter in all directions. People realized that the situation threatens to turn into a large-scale disaster. Feng Li looked at our hero and asked if he represents how strong he is. Let him give us stolen in a good way. Qin pretended to cleanse his ear and asked that she went to intimidate the innocent people. Is it really impossible to solve the issue quietly and without special effects? The enemy clenched his fists and made such a jump that the stones flew from under his feet. All this was accompanied by another threat. One of the stones flew right into Qin. Li Feng shouted, "What the hell he was and is not trying to dodge?" The hero caught the cobblestone on the fly and continued to smile sweetly, yawning. The enemy realized that he was far from as simple as it seems. Well, the turn has come to take advantage of the special technique. Li Feng materialized a huge snake. The monster rushed on the attack. The snake was moving not too fast, trying to find the most vulnerable place of the guy to make a bite. With his hand, shrouded in the energy of qi, Qin chopped the monster, as if it were a sharp sword. He shouted that it was time to stop the battle. He really has nothing belonging to the Feng family. the enemy thought. He did not expect such power from a simple guy and was ready to believe in his words. Seeing how the strength of the dragon envelops our hero, Li Feng noted that he saw this only in his father. Apparently, it was better to prepare for battle. But then the young man thought that they would just laugh if he returned empty-handed. It was impossible to stop the duel. A bad reputation is worse than a bad result. The guy again began to accumulate dark energy for another attack. Qin once again urged him to stop the duel and just talk. But now no one has heard him. Realizing what looks more and more dangerous, our hero ordered the audience to quickly take their feet to hell. One of the men lingered. He wanted to take a fight on the phone. The camera began to work, but then there was a terrible one. The black energy blade pierced Li Feng's throat, killing him in a split second. What the man saw on the screen shocked him. A dark figure in the hood stood over the outstretched body. Apparently, it was the elder of the clan of the Warlocks. He showed a guy with a telephone gesture, meaning silent about what he saw. It is not difficult to guess that the camera captured this. But after a second, there was nobody on the screen. The figure in a black mantle seemed to dissolve in the air. The insect appeared on Liuba with the guy, and he began to yell at the whole throat that Qin killed Li Feng. The elder was extremely pleased. It remained to get the desired from our hero. He stated that he would save lives to people if the guy gives him what he wanted. He threatened that if Qin refuses, then he will kill the hostages one at a time, and will begin with Miss Su and the girl from the Feng family. At the same moment, the elder cut off the body of one of the spectators with the help of the power stream. Lifting it into the air for effectively, he turned to the hero with the words that it would be so with everyone. The guy replied that he would like to be sure that no one would suffer before his return. The sorcerer laughed and said that although it was not particularly decent, but in this case he intends to restrain the word, Qin turned around and ran from the arena. The indignant spectators began to yell that he had to save them, and not fleeing. The young man jumped out into the street and began to think about what to do. He was panicked, but then he was dawned on the idea and the hero took out the phone. The first to whom he called was a Scar. The instructions were very clear. The man was ready to help Qin at all costs, and it really went about money. Then the guy promised to return everything. It was necessary to get and buy as many healing herbs and ingredients as it will work. Do it in the next half an hour. Then Qin should have found a hole in the formation to place the collected energy there, unnoticed from prying eyes. At this time, Su Van tried to reassure Xiaodi, explaining to the baby that they would surely save them. Although she began to doubt it herself, the elder heard she believed in Qin and asked on what grounds he tried to shake her trust. The girl replied that since her grandfather recognized the power of the hero, this means that the guy's power is undeniable. The sorcerer was surprised that Mr. Su made such a conclusion, but then he remembered that this was not about the Su family from the capital, and calmed down. The elder advised the girl to call Qin and hurry him, because it is quite difficult to restrain himself and not kill people. Su Van thought that since the hero still has not appeared, it means that she was busy with something important. The call could interfere, but if he does not cope, a spare option is needed. Then she remembered the Su family from the capital, and decided that in a critical situation you could ask for help from those who deleted you from life. The villa of the metropolitan family of Su was not luxurious, it was perfect, and the garden and the whole territory was particularly sophisticated. The phone rang. The woman got up to see who dared to bother her at such a late hour. On the screen was the name of Su Van, and the stranger was in no hurry to answer this call. He clearly did not promise anything good. The phone did not stop. The beauty was forced to accept the challenge, as if she did not want to avoid this. The news could be important. Su Van asked for help. The woman arrogantly stated that she was not going to hit her finger on the finger for the one who was calling. The girl said that she would do anything if she could help. The woman replied that she was ready to discuss something only after Mr. Su and his granddaughter knelt down and publicly recognized their mistake. Su Van did not say anything, and the woman added that it should live so that no one would cause hatred, then help would not be needed. She threw the phone on the sofa and muttered that it was some kind of nonsense. She did not expect anything like it at all. Su Yu heard this conversation. He did not ask questions, but began to think what could happen to her sister that she decided on this call. Su Van was holding the phone in her hands. She was crushed and thought that if she were strong enough and influential, she would not be in such a humiliating position. Xiaodi noticed that her friend was upset and asked what had happened. Hiding her tears, the girl replied that everything was in order and asked if the girl was not hungry. The baby hugged her and said that she should not be upset. She was ready to help and protect no matter what happens. At this time, our hero was sitting on the shore of the lake and tried to call the spirit of heaven and earth, the unity of power. He concentrated on the fact that everything flows its turn. Life continues, but he urgently needs an additional amount of energy. Finding a free formation, Qin hid there the whole stock of his spiritual forces and ki that he possessed. This was the first step to the goal. Just at that time, a Scar and Qinhu appeared. They carried bags with healing ingredients that managed to get. The stock was impressive and our hero was extremely pleased. His friends did not let him down at a critical moment. He thanked both, to which he received an answer that it was a joy to help someone who owes his life. Now the matter remained for Qin. He had to embody his plan into reality. Taking the ingredients, he headed to a suitable place, asking his friends to move a little further so that the flow of energy would not hurt. The guy went to the waterfall, where a person's leg had not yet stepped. It was an ideal place to go to a new level and accumulate the maximum amount of ki. The hero took off his jacket and sat directly into the water, trying to achieve maximum concentration. It was necessary to remain absolutely calm. Soon, the first flows of bluish energy began to rise from the water. The process began earlier than one could expect. The young man turned to the spirits, asking for their strength. The formula that he used had a temporary character. It was necessary to achieve its action for at least half an hour. In the hands of Qin appeared the core of power, spreading a pleasant yellow glow of the dragon's energy around him. The hero took him in his hand. The case remained small. Take this pill and return to the arena as soon as possible while she acts. Now the yellow glow covered the whole body of a young man. He was convinced that he did everything right and was preparing to fight with the enemy. Scar and Qinhu could not understand why their friend did not freeze and did not move. He could not screw up. At that time, a dazzling flash of yellow color appeared right in the middle of the waterfall. The transformation began. Soon, the first steps of Qin, who walked on the water, was like on the ground, without plunging into it. The hero was transformed in appearance. Energy overwhelmed him. The guy reached the level of the golden elixir. His validity period was half an hour. But this should have been enough. Meanwhile, in the arena, the audience continued to be indignant at the fact that the young man simply escaped, and the elder tried to convince Suvan to go to his side. He wanted to reach out to the girl and put her on her shoulder, but received a rebuff from the baby. Xiaodi shouted that no one had the right to touch Suvan without her permission, so let her stay away. Suvan screamed so that the girl did not make stupid things and hide behind her. The elder began to laugh. He decided to begin the murder. Moreover, he decided to start with Xiaodi and her girlfriends to sacrifice them, and then complete the bloody ritual. Then he heard the voice that ordered to stop. The sorcerer looked around to understand who dares to give him instructions. The hero's silhouette appeared in the doorway. An incredibly powerful glow spread around him. The sorcerer ordered the guy to give what he was sent for, to which Qin replied that he had come here not to give, but to pick up. The elder grinned. Why he plans to pick up? To which the guy replied that his life, his voice sounded menacingly. The sorcerer took out a sheet with a spell and applied it with lightning speed, accompanying his actions with dirty curses and threats. He struck and rushed up at such a speed that he pierced the ceiling. The young man without hesitation for a second set off in the persecution. Qin repelled the blow and did not lag behind the sorcerer. He understood with horror that the hero became more and more with the words so that he does not even hope to escape. The young man struck his first blow using the energy of the dragon. The elder fell down into the water. The hero went down after him. It was necessary to finish the battle before the elixir ceased to act. The sorcerer seemed to read his thoughts and said that he was sure that this power and power of the hero have a temporary effect. The guy did not answer, saying that this would be enough to destroy the enemy. The hero began to prepare for the attack, but it was clear that he did not expect his secret to be revealed so quickly. The elder castled the spell. The sorcerer read so many spells that the guy became a little uneasy. He did not know what to expect. The used sheets one by one fell into the water, and then, contrary to all the laws of physics, fell to the bottom. The hero expected when they began to act, trying to understand whether the elder created another clone or called on insects. Several bubbles appeared on the water. The next moment, the first monster pile jumped out the next moment. This was not all after him. Scolopenders, scorpions, and other parasites began to appear after him. The sorcerer promised his children a delicious dinner. Qin decided that at all costs he had to cope. The elder at that time announced that he had to pay for his deed. The hero was indignant that he did nothing that should be paid for. He prepared 2 fingers for his crown attack. The sorcerer shouted that he was enough and forced all the monster science to attack Qin Chen with one wave. Gades attacked a young man so much that soon he was no longer visible from under a pile of insects. The elder had fun. He said that he was not tolerated to tear his skin from Qin Chen and see what color his meat is. He threatened to take him to the temple and turn it into his humble puppet. With the help of the dragon strength, the sect would finally gain true greatness. Our hero was not going to give up just like that. Almost immediately above the mount of insects, a light lilac haze appeared, becoming more denser and denser. Qin Chen had been freed for a long time and stood a little behind, while the sorcerer promised to put him a beautiful tombstone. The Guy of Time was not lost in vain. Now the flows of energy moved in the opposite direction, and the young man noticed that the Warlock is not so strong as it could be expected. Squinting, Qin Chen made several passes with his hand and muttered that he expected to see other trump cards from the sleeve of the elder. But it turned out that there was nothing. Looking at a bunch of swarming worms, the henchman said that sooner or later this child would be crushed. Just at this moment, insects scattered in different directions, reduced by the energy of ki of the hero. There was 30 seconds to the end of the elixir, and the guy said that he was tired and it was time to finish the performance. The elder understood that he had little chance, but decided to try another remedy against Qin Chen. He raised his hand, collecting drops of water. He endowed each of them with his energy, making a stronger bullet. Our hero repelled them all and said that the idea was good, and the implementation was pumped up. There were 10 seconds left until the end of the elixir. The elder asked Qin Chen to simply calm down and talk. He already felt that something would change soon. A second before becoming himself, the hero ordered him to stay away from him if he is destined to meet in the next life. The guy used the nameless blow donated to him by the dragon. This was supposed to put the final point in the duel. At the same instant, the effect of the elixir ended, and the hero almost fell. It was difficult for him to even just stand. He realized that he was starting to sink, and consciousness was about to leave the body. Exhaustion has reached an extreme degree. Then he heard the voices of Scar and Qin Hu, who fled to his aid with all his feet, saying that Mr. Fan had arrived and saved everyone. Su Van and his daughter are in perfect order. At the villa, where Qin Chen and Su Van lived a quiet conversation of the girls, one of them asked Von why she did not tell everything before. Our hero woke up in his own bed and tried to understand who Su Van was talking to, how it smells so tasty, and how it ended with the elder. His girlfriend appeared in the doorway and asked if the young man was hungry after such a long sleep. They just had a dinner. A stranger stood behind her. The guy sat down and somehow looked at her in surprise, saying that he was happy to eat something hot. Su Van in the mittens brought a pot right to the bed. She was incredibly glad. The girl was more skeptical behind her. When Mi Su rushed off to the kitchen to set the table, our hero asked the stranger who she was. A powerful stream of energy emanated from her and blew force. The beauty asked why Mr. Qin Chen is so nervous. Her name is Shan Mai and she is the best friend Su Van because she would not harm anyone. Thinking, Mayer added that she would not offend at least Miss Su and has not yet been about the rest. The guy looked at her very closely and replied that he did not trust anyone in this world except himself. The girl answered him that it was immediately clear how much the hero was in love with Su Van, even if she didn't worry about her. Then she remembered that she did not inform him of an ancient prediction that this year the most powerful root in the country would appear in the city. Rumor has it, this is not an ordinary plant, it loves cold, because it will appear high in the mountains and will heal all possible diseases, or maybe even immortality will be given. It is also said that it can throw 100 years of practice and make the warrior bodies strong and invulnerable. The hero said that he was simply obliged to get or steal this root. The girl replied that the Cyan family sent 3 great masters for the plant. She doubts that Qin Chen would stand against them. The girl finished that it was just information for general development. She herself does not know why she told the hero about this. Our hero said that if we are talking about the 3 strongest masters, then he has little chance after the elixir. Mei replied that she came to the hero's house to agree with him about cooperation. They say that the one who gets the plant has completely new opportunities. The hero asked why she then hung noodles on her ears about 3 masters. The girl explained that these miserable old men had long wanted to shift her from his post, and if Qin Chen gets the root for her, everything will be in chocolate. The guy has enough time until the end of the year. Mei finished the fact that she was counting on his help very much. Here Su Van returned to the room and was surprised that they were still talking. Mei was embarrassed and explained that, as a best friend, she should better recognize the guy in order to understand whether he suits Su Van. Su Van laughed that this is true, But it is better to talk about such things for food, to combine the pleasant with useful. She has not yet agreed, and Qin Chen and Mei accepted the combat rack. A second later, the old man appeared behind the girl, saying that they felt his presence too late. The sorcerer added that they should better defend Su Van because she could not determine his essence. Mei rushed into the attack. With the words that she underestimates him, the old man twisted an additional subspace from the flows of energy around him. After the first blow, the girl fell into the formation he created, not understanding what to do now. The whole battle was now happening in her head, and Mei realized that in this mental battle she could not be defeated. The old man continued to be invisible, and Su Van rushed to her friend, trying to understand what was happening to her. Then it was the turn to join the battle of Qin Chan. The guy attacked the enemy with a powerful stream of the dragon fiery energy. The guy used all his power. Unfortunately, he had not yet come to his senses after the past battle. The sorcerer cast spell without sheets, protecting himself with a shield. He said that as the son of his father, the guy is strong, but so far his abilities are at the level of foundation. Qin Chen stopped the attack and asked if the sorcerer really knew his father. He answered in the affirmative, but added that he was not good enough to become that friend. The sorcerer scratched his beard and smiled. The guy noted that his strength was huge, simply incomprehensible. He asked what was the reason for the visit. The old man noted Su Van with a pointing gesture and said that he had come to pick up the girl. Around Qin, Chan was dusting the flames of flame. He said that he vowed to protect the girl at the cost of his life, and even if he was still young, but would not allow the old man to harm her. The sorcerer calmly looked at the hero and again noted that he would recognize his father's blood, after which he added that sanity should be maintained. The man explained that he would not ask consent if he planned to kill or cripple a girl. He carefully took Su Van by the hand and said that the future was a huge danger, and it would be better to entrust the defense of the heroine to those who exactly cope with this. The guy shouted that they should not worry about it. He has a plan. But Su Van did not let him agree. The girl said that he had a long way of improving ahead, and she did not want to be a burden. The sorcerer said that with her potential, Su Van could also become a warrior. Qin Chen clenched his fist. He did not want to accept the fact that he would have to leave for a while. But then our hero thought that after meeting with him, the girl more than once found himself in mortal danger. Perhaps the sorcerer is right. At first she was kidnapped. Then they experienced black magic. Su Van almost died several times. The guy realized that the parting would go to her for the benefit. After the threats and attempts to lure the elder, the girl and he himself did what she had a certain spiritual potential. Qin Chen decided that as a groom Su Van and as her bodyguard, he is not yet enough qualified. The guy asked the old man to swear, which guarantees complete security for the girl and would protect her at the cost of his life. He replied that from the moment she crosses the threshold of his house, he would be considered his student and receive all the privileges of this status, including protection. He finished that he advised the hero more diligently to train. Then Su Van could return, after which he inflicted a treacherous blow to him Qin Chen did not expect and collapsed to the floor. Su Van followed the old man to the door, listening to his mutter that the guy was exactly the same stubborn as his father. The girl asked the hero to wait for her. Qin Chen jumped up and began to call his beloved. Mayor asked him to stop yelling. His ears were already hurt. She suggested not to put it in a long box, and now to develop a training plan. They have enough time. If the sorcerer wanted to harm Miss Su, he would not leave them alive, so we must try to glory to return it. The hero replied that he agreed to any plan that Mei would offer, and in order to make her more strongly with the fact that he would find the right plant she spoke about. But before that, he asked the girl to tell everything that she knew about the Su family. Mayor looked at him puzzled. She explained that the Su family is the top of the elite of the capital. It is divided into several branches, one of which was ruled by grandfather Su Van. This family plays an important role in all areas, starting from martial arts and technology development, and ending with politics, business, and the cultural sphere. The whole country depends on the decisions made in the family. The branch of the martial arts of Su Kai, his son, Su Yu, became a great master 3 years ago. He is the best of the best warriors in the world. Qin Chen said that Miss Su's brother is 5 years older than his years. When he reaches the same age, it would become even stronger. It shocked Mayor. The girl asked not to rush with conclusions. She continued that, as a person of Su Yum is extremely unpleasant. Nevertheless, a family can afford to hire masters of transformation to achieve their goals. The guy asked whether the old man and Mei had replied that no master of transformation. The sorcerer was much stronger, maybe even the level of the divine kingdom. The hero nodded and said that he now approximately understood how things were, and added that it was time for them to advance. The beauty asked if they were going somewhere together. The answer was a clear, short, and completely corresponding to the character of Chin-chan. He said that they were going to train. This proposal was perceived by Mei-er somewhat ambiguously, yet paired training on the first day of acquaintance is somehow too much. A picture appeared in the girl's brain, how they together bathe in a thermal source after heavy physical exertion. Maybe it was something wrong with her. Chin-chan was already standing in the doorway and called to Mei-er, not understanding why she hesitated and what was in her head. After a couple of months, the city was announced in the city of the Feng family of the family. The head of the clan returned to take revenge on the elder for the murder of the eldest son. Seeing Chin-chan, the audience immediately began to make assumptions whether the son of Su would act and in what role he granted the festival. Mei-er was surprised that the hero was not in the city for only 6 months, and people have already fought a million of various rumors. Then the hero turned sharply to the sound. Someone cursed and asked why it was a blow. A teenager with pink hair was reclining on the ground, and the guard was attending him with questions why he had a little here and why he behaved like that. The boy took off the dark glasses and asked what was wrong with his level and why it was necessary to hit right away. There were no people who would be born strong. After he suggested that the guards want to stand out in public, they replied that they did not need a special reason to beat him. The teenager tried to get up to escape, but immediately received a crushing blow in his stomach and grimaced in pain. Someone carefully helped him rise and sympathetically asked if everything was in order. The boy did not expect this. It was Chin-chan, and a teenager thanked him in a frightened voice, after which he replied that everything was fine. The hero asked the dogs from the Feng family if they remember who he is, since such behavior allow themselves. This time, we'll certainly remember. When asked by men who he really is, Chin-chan called his name and asked him to well remember his face. When the guards remained in an unconscious state, the boy began to beg the hero to take him as a student. The young man replied that he did not take his students, but the Malay began to pour compliments to him and assure that for the sake of such a fan like him, one can make an exception. Then someone's voice said that when he was still looking for a mentor, if not at a young age, it was already familiar to us, a long-haired sorcerer from the Feng family, the youngest son of the head of the clan. Chin-chan called to Feng-chen with the words that they had not seen for a long time. Maybe it was time to fight. The enemy boiled. Feng was indignant at such impudence, but said that if the hero could defeat his father in the ring, he would be forgiven. Behind the young man there was a retinue of bodyguards. They seemed to hint that in the event of a loss, the script would be completely different. Mei-er grabbed the hero by the t-shirt and in anger asked what he was doing. Was not friends with her head, apparently. The guy asked what was not so. In response, the girl said that the head of the Feng family, although old, was simply incredible. Even in the best form, Chin-chan would not be easy to cope with him. The hero replied that he knows about this. His whole life consists of the peaks that should be overcome, whether he should be glad that he had such a chance. The girl screamed that he was too self-confident, and a teenager with pink hair, on the contrary, began to chant the hero's name and support him in every way. Chin-chan looked at the boy and asked to remind him a little later. For him there is excellent advice, the famous master of martial arts. Lu also came to the festival. The assistant showed him to Chin-chan in the crowd and spoke a few words about him. The old man looked at the hero with special vision and appreciated his high skills and a kind heart, as well as faith in himself. Master Lu said that he would like to meet such a good guy, and the assistant promised to arrange a meeting in the near future. When Chin-chan and Mei entered the hall, people instantly began to discuss his appearance, character, and behavior. It seems that during the absence, the guy became a real celebrity. Someone said that he was a real maniac, another that would not mind making friends with him. The hero himself replied that the opinion of the public was changing too quickly because he was not worried. Then the Master Lu approached Chin-chan and held out his hand in greeting. He said that he had heard about the hero's victory over the elder of the sect Xuanmen, but did not believe it until he saw the guy live. They shook hands. The elder Lu replied that, unlike the others, he was not at all averse to making friends with Chin-chan. The hero replied that if it does not scare him, he would be very happy. Mei-er immediately began to babble that she was a huge fan of the martial artist, and this is a great honor for them. The old man only smiled at her. Then the head of the house of Feng, Feng Gong, approached them and said that it was better for the Master Lu at his age to sit at home and not waste time on such ventures. The elder Lu replied that the martial artist should not reason in this way, and also speak out. They both reached a high level and he cannot lose. Feng grinned and said that since the master insists so much, he inflicted a sudden energy blow to him. The old man flew back. He did not expect such a vile attack at all, because he did not have time to defend himself or evade. Lu tried to rise and reproach the enemy that he did not respect the elementary rules of ethics. If he fights, then in the ring. Feng replied that these stupid ideas have long been outdated. The warrior should not adhere to the rules. He himself creates them, new ones. Our hero caught himself thinking that this fan is a bastard, which is not enough. He terribly wanted to teach him. The next moment, the sorcerer naughty the next spell and launched it right into the Master Lu. It was something similar to the mirror. Qin looked at what was happening and realized that Feng abducted the skill and vital energy of the elder. He did not understand how he succeeded. Master Lu screamed in horror. What happened to him for a martial artist was much worse than death. The old man fell to his knees and puzzledly asked the enemy how he dared to destroy his skills. Because this is a terrible crime. Feng laughed and asked that something was wrong and that he could not arrange him at all because no one was killed. He put his hands to the sky and shouted that this was only the beginning. He would destroy everyone. The world would talk about the Feng family. It will become the most influential in the capital and in the country. Tien Chen clenched his fists and exclaimed that the scoundrel was probably joking and doing it completely in vain. The guy asked if a person of his level should engage in such baseness. Besides, hiding his true level of power is also dishonest. Mr. Feng replied that he had belittled precisely so that such insects show his opinion and be punished for him. Our hero asked at what grounds he was so called and for what they were going to punish him. The old man replied that if his son were alive, he would be incredibly strong. But Qin Chen killed him. The guy replied that his son himself came to him, intending to join the battle. And if the elder Xuanman killed him in the arena, then not because of him. The old man cried out that this was a lie. Our hero began to lose patience. It seems that it would not be possible to avoid the battle. He sighed noisily. Qin Chen recalled that the youngest son promised to end the enmity after he wins the battle of his father, and asked if this was so. The sorcerer hit my hand in hand and replied that this, of course, is only impossible to win it. Already a moment, he jumped and rushed into an attack on a young man, as the last time, completely unexpectedly. But unlike the Master Lu, our hero was absolutely ready for this. He already degraded the true essence of the enemy. The elder began to beg Mei to convince Qin Chen to abandon the fight. The guy has a bright future and he should not die so stupidly. The girl asked Master Lu in a completely flat tone not to worry about it. The guy would not lose today. She explained that Qin Chen would not lose in principle, because in fact he is much stronger than the Master of Feng. Just at that moment, the hero successfully stopped the attack of the sorcerer, simply grabbing his hand at the very last moment. The words of Mei surprised the elder. But even more than him and all those present surprised how the hero behaved, cutting off the enemy's attack in one movement. Feng and Qin Chen parted at different corners of the arena. The old man said that he did not think that the guy would cope with the first blow. He retorted that he would cope with anything. The old man said that this was quite arrogant, and the hero should be punished for his narcissism. A new attack followed. To the surprise of the enemy, Qin Chen possessed internal protection and did not let him do the same as with the Master Lu. Many died in an attempt to overcome Feng's corporate appointment. Everyone realized that the ring turned into a formation created by Mr. Feng's consciousness, whispered in the stands that Qin Chen was doomed. The guy raised a regular branch from the ground and said that if someone was accused of arrogance, it was Feng family. He launched a branch into the enemy and even knocked out a couple of teeth. Representatives of the clan staggered in horror, fearing the wrath of the elder. Mei and Master Lu grabbed her head. The girl whispered that Qin Chen was not friends with her head, and the man called him an unreasonable child. The audience buzzed in the stands. No one believed that you could fight against such a master with the help of some branch. Feng hissed that this was true mockery. If Qin Chen manages to at least touch him, he recognizes the guy as a master. He would not even move, waving a branch, as if playing with a dog. The hero specified whether this is really so. He accumulated an incredible supply of energy, and he already sought to be used. He directed the branch to the enemy and said that he did not often see this. But today, the impossible would become possible. The fluxes of the dragon's energy began to approach the Master of Feng. The man, as promised, stood motionless. They passed by the old man, not touching him, but enveloped with their energy unobtrusively and very smoothly. Feng began to mock. He stated that he considered Qin Chain capable, but his attack was completely useless. Let him hasten to kneel and pray for mercy. Then the old man gasped and plunged a powerful fountain of blood out of himself, clamping his mouth. He misunderstood how this was generally possible. The hall trembled and the ceiling split in two. The entire internal energy of the Elder Feng disappeared. As if she had never been, he realized in horror that he had lost. The son rushed to him with all his feet. He was most afraid of remaining an orphan in the circumstances. The crowd buzzed. Everyone was interested in what kind of technique, how Mr. Feng could lose, and how strong in this case Qin Chen was. The son of the head of the clan Feng stood near his father and viciously said that he was still wandering with a young man for what he had done. Our hero stood nearby, but his gaze was attached to the sky and not at all to the representatives of the Feng family. After a moment, he applied the spell and his strength began to leave the elder son. He froze in fright and asked to stop with a trembling voice. Qin Chen did not listen, and only when the guy fell squeezed and suspended the spell, the guy shouted that he was mistaken and asked to leave resentment in the past. Our hero said that since his father lost, he now would have to deal with everything himself. Feng nodded and promised to fulfill everything that the Master Qin would order. The young man folded his hands and said that he would have to start with a public apology before the Master Lu. Feng hastened to execute the instructions and the stands buzzed that Qin Chan was destined to become a new star of the capital. The SU family from the capital was supposed to find out the news about how the match was held. From the servant, this happened immediately after the battle. Mrs. Su dismissed her hand, saying that she did not need to superior confirmation of the skill of the Elder Feng. Su Yu, not looking up from reading, confirmed that this master is one of the best in the world. Therefore, he did not doubt the next confirmation of his power. When the servant finally said that Feng lost, the woman was already jumping up and shouted that this could not be. In just 6 months, Qin Chan managed to achieve the level of such a master and defeat him. It is simply incredible. Su Yu replied that Uni was once also called a genius. And what happened since that, this is all just a coincidence. Luck? The woman replied that they should meet this guy and evaluate his real strength. Brother Su Van agreed. At this time, crowds of fans besieged Qin Chan's house. Some of them even climbed the roof. The guy talked with Mayor and Fan. He replied to all the fears of Shram that people themselves would leave them alone. The main thing is not to lean out. Feng replied that he was ready to comply with all further instructions, while preparing a detailed report on the state of family affairs. He also listed all the assets, especially in detail in the pharmaceutical industry, passing them all, Qin Chan. The guy asked where the master's family got so many promotions. Mei Er explained that many companies need to be defended and pay, providing a share in business. Sticking a few more pages of the report, the young man admitted that his girlfriend is absolutely right. He released the son of Mr. Feng, recalling that a detailed report would be expected from him once a month. The young man agreed and was about to leave, as the hero also reminded him to cut off all the connections with Xuanmin. If he does not, then Qin Chen promised to destroy the whole family of Feng with his own hands. The guy nodded. He jumped out the door so fast that it might seem to be in the room and there was no one before. Qin Chen leaned back in the sofa and said that he was mortally tired of doing the affairs of rich people. This is very tiring. Mei Er called him a boost. But in time, she came to her senses that she had been lifted and added that she had still important information. She reminded of the plant, about which she spoke at the first meeting with the hero. So, the Su family of SU learned about him and entered the struggle for owning the root. The girl asked if he was ready to continue, because under this pretext the metropolitan part of the SU family could kill. The young man in response only laughed merrily and noticed that this must have been such a joke. The hero noticed that this plant is a real treasure capable of making it the best in the world, and he has ever been plowing before danger. Mayor began to say that tomorrow they would go in search of when a pink-haired fan climbed the window and apologized for the invasion. His eyes shone with joy. The teenager greeted and again began to ask Qin Chen to take him as a student. He plopped down on his knees and said that he would go to everything to achieve the goal, but our hero asked him to get up. At this time, Su Van, in the likeness of the ice waters of the Arctic or the magical formation, entered into a fight with a polar bear. The animal rose to the hind legs, demonstrating its most dangerous weapons, powerful teeth and claws. The beast was ready to attack, but the girl managed to do this first, inflicting a powerful blow to him in the stomach. The bear flew back. It seemed that this ice flies under his paws, and not vice versa. The girl said that the match was over. The elder noted that Su Van is not at all so zealous. her progress, and so the fastest of all that he taught? The girl shook her head. While her strength was not enough to become a reliable support for Chin-chan, the old man said that he would not argue for a long time about this and offered to move on to the next lesson. They went forward, among the ice blocks that beautifully interpreting in the sun. Suvan was waiting for a brilliant future,